Majority Report with Sam Seder.
The destiny of America is always safer in the hands of the people than in the conference rooms of any elite.
Sam Seder.
They are unanimous in their hate for me, and I welcome their hatred.
We must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
Ever get the feeling you've been cheated?
It is Tuesday, July 30th, 2019. My name is Sam Seder. This is the 5-time award-winning Majority Report. We're broadcasting live steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, USA. On the program today, it's debate night number 1 preview. Today, because it's debate night, it's the second debate first night, 2.1 tonight. Boom. Also on the program today, Trump's Intel director is an unqualified liar, as opposed to the qualified liars who should be in that job. Republicans marinating in the racism of their party. More Democrats on board with impeachment, both in the Senate and the House, in the wake of the Mueller testimony. And is Donald Trump's racist attack versus Cummings a function of Cummings' investigation in Trump Inc.'s involvement in a Saudi nuke plan? Meanwhile, President Stephen Miller wants ICE to adjudicate asylum claims. This judge is too weak. Senate fails to override the Trump veto on the restrictions on Saudi arms sales. Trump's food stamp assault could also end up axing free lunches for 500,000 kids. Dems wake up to the massive hill that is a Senate takeover. And meanwhile, many Democratic incumbents are getting challengers as the DCCC implodes. And how many times are we supposed to be okay with data breaches? Apparently, all of them. And forever. And lastly, congratulations. We have hit the tipping point. Afghan and NATO forces have now, in the first half of 2019, killed more civilians than anyone else. We've killed more civilians than we have actual fighters, and managed to kill more civilians than even the Taliban. So, good on you, folks. Only took us about 20 years to get there, but we got there. Everybody pat yourselves on the shoulders. All this and more on today's program. Oh, ladies and gentlemen, I should tell you this right up front. We're going to do a shorter free show today. So if you are listening via the podcast, of course, if you're listening live or watching live, you will see all of it. But if you're listening via the podcast, it'll be a shortened audio podcast today. We will move into the fun half, wherein we'll have something a little bit different, sort of a throwback. It's a Throwback Tuesday around here. I don't know if I would call this a debate. Maybe it'll end up being a debate. I suspect it might be, we may be debating certain topics, but I will be talking to the 19th and current chair of the Libertarian National Committee. We will, this is part of my listening tour listening and talking tour to determine whether I should throw my hat into the Libertarian 2020 sweeps, as it were.
I think this is an intellectual curiosity expedition.
That's correct. I will be talking to Nicholas Sarwark about my prospects, perhaps. I'm not quite sure. It was out there, and so we said yes. Sometimes that's the way that we program around here. We just walk around, bump into walls, and then sometimes say yes.
Like always improv. Say yes.
Hi, do you believe that water shouldn't be treated? Oh, great. Call in my program.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. So we will be talking to Nicholas in a bit. And I should also tell you that tonight we will be covering the debates live. The best thing to do, is to go to majority.fm on the homepage. We will have a link to where we're doing this, but we will most likely be streaming live to Twitch. Twitch is available to everyone, and you can. I don't even know if you have to sign up for it. You just go on it, and you have to sign up, I think, if you're gonna stream. But so you can just watch there. The experience is very much like YouTube. Arguably, I don't know. Is it cooler? I don't know.
Sure.
It's a totally different. It's the people who stream on Twitch. They, I used to think that I had stamina, because I have once done. What do we do? A 12-hour show? Were you for that?
No, I wasn't.
I did a 12-hour show, and back in the radio days, I would do 7 hours, full stop radio. Now that's exhausting. But these men and women on Twitch, they'll do like 7-8 hours a day, 6 days a week.
Well, this is why I've been trying to push a message to take gamers seriously, because they do have impressive stamina.
And so then
in gaming.
and then what happens?
Just watch their Twitch.
Watch their Twitch.
Yeah, I've watched Hassan Piker's Twitch. To be fair, though, sometimes he's just like doing things around his house or playing basketball. Well, people eat it up, though. They want to watch him.
Fair enough. But be that as it may, we will be streaming on Twitch tonight. We'll have full debate coverage. And tomorrow we will provide for you a recap of the debate tonight. And then we will be back to cover the second night of the debate. I will get into the debate stuff tonight. But before we get to that, just want to remind you how not racist Donald Trump is. We know he's not racist because he told us. And here he is. He is on the White House lawn. And it turns out he is one of the least racist people in the world.
I am the least racist person there is anywhere in the world. When conmen, who I've known almost all my business life, because I had to deal with them, unfortunately, in New York. But I got
Pause it for 1 second. Now, he was talking about, he's known Al Sharpton almost all his business life. Now, I thought he had said, if you didn't hear the Sharpton, that almost I've been the least racist person for almost my entire business life, because there was that little thing where they had to get 2 consent decrees from the Department of Justice for stop being so racist in your housing policies.
Yeah, but we didn't have Barr there at the time.
Right, we had no idea. So
with him, Al Sharpton. Now he's a racist. He's a racist. But when people, let me explain to you. What I've done for African Americans in 2.5 years, no president has been able to do anything like it.
There you go, African Americans. He's the great white hope, as Jesse Lee Peterson would say.
There's a great exchange among, all of the exchanges with Cornel West are great, but he told a very funny. Rogan asked him if he ever met Trump. And he said that he did meet Trump briefly, I think, in the 80s or early 90s at some show in Las Vegas. And Cornel, he threaded basically a broader argument about what patriotism is and immigration and the black experience. But he just had a very funny rundown of how excited Trump was to be in a room of black people because it made him feel cool.
Right.
And that was his distinct memory of Trump. And that's like Trump's sort of MO is like this. That's why I feel like it's so Queens, it's so New York, because it's so vilely racist. And then also like, hey, what's up, hip cat? Let me come uptown. You know, Cornel West really explained that well.
Pass the watermelon, mo effer.
No, but it would almost be like Bill O'Reilly doesn't get it.
He doesn't get it.
These are my cats.
Look, here is Donald Trump explaining a little bit more.
Because the African American people have been calling the White House. They have never been so happy as what a president has done.
The African American people have been calling the White House. I'm not sure how that works exactly. Like, is it that party app? Is there a party app? Where everybody lines up, but there it is, Donald Trump, the least racist person. And this is relevant because it will, there's a couple of polling out today. Now, look, who knows, right? I mean, we don't know this stuff. But there is indications that this is going to hurt Trump. This seems to be the game plan. And he's going to keep looking for these opportunities in which to basically string that racist flag up. There was no doubt, right, that in 2018, the hardcore racists just didn't show up. Republicans had a better turnout than they've had in the past. Democrats had an even better turnout than they've had in the past. Donald Trump will motivate those people to come out. However, there's two data points that I want you to, that I've seen. One is a report that for whatever reason, this explicit of racism is turning off and Trump is beginning to lose non-college educated white women. No, I mean,
I didn't start anything with the wife.
And I'm not quite clear what it is that why all of a sudden this racism, but people suspect that it may have something to do with the kids, but the racism in and of itself seems to be so blatant. The non-college white guys, they're all in. This motivates them to vote. Not all white guys.
No, non-college. I'm less triggered by the white guys than the non-college educated.
Not all white guys.
Careful.
Not all non-college. I'm talking in broad strokes. Not all. Not even probably the majority of non-college educated white women are moving to Trump because of this. But it's significant enough of them that it's problematic for Trump. Simultaneously, there is some polling that is showing that the voters who did not come out in 2012, who came out in 2012 but did not come out in 2016 for the Democratic candidate, may very well be motivated by this explicit of racism, right? Like, I can tell you that, do you remember Mike who worked downstairs here? How would you say he's late 20s, early 30s? African-American guy, late 20s, 30s, was working at, in the building as like I don't know what you call it, a concierge. Door. And I think he was an IT guy or he had some, I can't remember.
He had this is like a day job.
This is a day job.
He had other things going on.
When Trump won, came in, he's like, yeah, I'm not surprised. That's the way this country is. Yep. And I think there was a lot of African Americans who had a similar response. Like, no kidding. And I think a lot of African Americans did not come out. In part, I mean, I don't know, how narrowly you want to tailor what politics are, but Hillary Clinton was just not doing the politics properly and to motivate it. Everything was transactional. Everything was top down. There was not necessarily, she was not emphasizing the material benefits that she was going to provide
and
to
not
voters.
trusted because of her own record and rhetoric.
The Clintons' record was incredibly racist.
Yes, yeah.
Particularly with them, that's real.
Right. I mean, and that has changed over time. Bill Clinton was relatively popular with the African American vote, and I would say also again, Clinton's relationships with older African Americans pretty strong. So, and I think there was an awareness of Trump's racism, but I think at one point, I don't know that we had a similar dynamic where Trump was like specifically targeting different African Americans over and over again. And in the course of the past week, in fact, actually now the non-college educated white women are responding to his attacks on the squad. I wouldn't be surprised if AOC's background as a bartender is not helpful in this regard.
It's definitely helpful in this regard. And I just want to say, I think that there's no question that we talk about the real contradictory nature of a lot of the electorate. And I think that this is why Matt and I have been trying to emphasize so much that you really have to disaggregate between a hardcore of a Trump Republican base and some other people who may have any number of problematic attitudes, blah, 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 blah. But they don't like this. They don't like, and it's bearing in the polls.
I don't think there's that many of those people, but I think there's some.
But they're geographically significantly distributed.
Exactly, yes. And which makes sense, right? I mean, it would make sense just in terms of very broad generalizations that someone living in Wisconsin might be more sensitive to overt racism than somebody, say, living in Alabama, with all due respect. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but I suspect that the data bears me out. But the real issue is, will it bring out African Americans who stayed home during the Clinton-Trump race, with Donald Trump going out there and getting all explicitly racist? I mean, super explicitly racist. And so we'll see. At the end of the day, this stuff is just sort of, I don't know. I don't want to say it's masturbatory, but I mean, that's part of why we do this, is just to sort of give you a sense of where we think things are. But at the end of the day, it's not going to make that much of a difference unless people get out there, organize, mobilize. So do that. And if that involves you traveling, I got good news. Segue. As you know, packing your toiletries somehow always involves a delicate game of stacking and space hacking, correct? That's why Quip electric toothbrushes work just as well at home as they do on the go. I mean, I don't know if this is an actual data point, but as far as I can tell, Quip is the most compact, does not involve a charger, tucks easily into your carry-on, into your backpack. Dental hygiene should not be just a function of staying overnight. It should be a daily thing, folks. Plus, the travel-ready cover acts as a stand. It mounts to hotel mirrors. It protects your brush from sandy swimsuits, luggage slip-ups. And the 3-month battery life will last through a season filled with weekends away. Brush heads are automatically delivered on a dentist-recommended, and not just dentist-recommended, but a SAM-recommended schedule, which is once every 3 months, for just $5. So you're always going to have fresh bristles. They're making it easier than ever to keep up with your wake-up and wind-down routine when you're out of the office. I have given a Quip to my sister, unsolicited. She sends me a text saying, I want you to know my dentist just complimented my teeth brushing since I got the Quip. It makes a huge difference, and I've said this many times before. You can buy whatever electric toothbrush you want. If you're not going to use it, it's not going to work. And the beauty of the Quip, to me, I mean, the design is very attractive, and it feels substantial but not too heavy. But the beauty is that it can sit right where your other toothbrushes used to sit because of its size. And so you're not charging it in a different room. You're not having to bring a charger when you travel. It's super convenient. And that's why I love Quip and why I'm taking it to, I guess I'm going to the beach later. I take it wherever I go.
Oh, good for you.
You're going to brush your teeth at the beach?
Well, in a couple weeks.
You brush your, and that's also a good follow-up question. You brush your teeth at the beach.
I brush my teeth 3 times a day now. So
damn right.
Quip starts at just $25, and if you go to getquip.com/majority right now, you can get your first refill pack for free. That's your first refill pack for free at getquip, GETQUIP.com/majority. Check it out. All right, let's get into this. Let's just do this Rush Limbaugh so that we can get this out of the way, and then we're going to do a little debate preview. Wow, Rush has done. He's had some work. He's just looking a little bit weird.
Oh my God,
he's a smooth boy.
What a handsome fatso.
Oh yeah.
I think Bernie's smooth. Damn.
And here
Wait,
he is.
excuse you.
Now listen. Whenever listen. This is important.
Spirit matters.
Whenever you're looking for someone to defend you from charges of racism, who better to defend you from charges of racism than Rush Limbaugh?
That's great.
And
I'm not racist. Ask my friend Rush.
Exactly.
All that great Jesse Jackson mugshot material.
Oh.
He's obviously not racist. That's like me saying, I'm super patient. I never lose my cool. Ask my friend Sam Seder.
That's right. That's right. There you go.
And guess who's running these places? It's not just Baltimore. Go to any place. You know, there's certain things you're not supposed to say. You're not supposed to criticize anything the Democrats run. You're not supposed to criticize anything where minorities are involved because that's automatically labeled racist. But I want to tell you right up front, the president is not a racist. He didn't say anything racist. He didn't call anybody, he called Cummings a racist after Cummings reacted. But folks, look, Detroit, Flint, Los Angeles, San Francisco, massive homeless problems. Wherever you find this decadent decay.
Pause it. Just so we just say, right. Flint, incidentally, is the city where white governors, white state officials poisoned thousands of children, giving them future neurological problems that they'll never be able to recover from because of a combination of their desire to save money and their refusal to listen to the people, like a fundamentally anti-democratic move. So Flint, very hard to say. The mayor had no control, incidentally, I would add.
No.
And the notion of deindustrialization being a function of democratic policies in these specific cities is absurd. It's just absurd.
San Francisco, massive homeless problems. Wherever you find this decadent decay, you're going to...
It's a bit redundant, but whatever.
Decadent decay?
Find Democrats having run the operation, or the city, the state, whatever it is, the county, for decades.
I'll remind you, what a load of hogwash this is. The idea that Democrats create homelessness, let's say, as opposed to just don't arrest people for being homeless. I'm looking now at the Rockefeller Institute for Government. It is the Who Gives and Who Gets page. Explore the balance of payments between states and the federal government. There are the balance of payments. There are some states that contribute more to the federal government than they get back. Those are Massachusetts, Connecticut, New Jersey, New York, Illinois, Washington State, Colorado, a couple others. The vast majority of the ones that are taking payments that are actually getting are controlled by Republicans, where money is coming in. So the idea that that there is problems as measured by sort of how much revenue is generated versus how much is spent, that there are problems with places specifically as a function of being governed by Democrats is absurd. There are urban environments that we have that have been systemically denied or have no political power, and they've been systemically denied the support structures that wealthier places have. Bottom line. Poverty has been allowed to fester. It has been enhanced by racist policies going back decades in terms of housing, in terms of jobs. And these are severe problems in some of these cities. Also exists in rural areas. It's just that you have fewer people there.
Yeah, that's exactly right. But you see also a parallel, and it's fascinating because, I mean, obviously now we're in a major upsurge back thanks to certain people in the IDW of racism and IQ stuff. But if you properly understand Charles Murray, more broadly than just the racism, he's trying to be the public intellectual that justifies class stratification. And so his books, after the bell curve, he started writing on how poor white people had innate cultural losing ground was all about how people in Appalachia and so on were decadent and living in decay and didn't have the intelligence and the discipline to succeed in capitalism, because that's what all this stuff is first you deindustrialize, oppress, and everything else to these people, and then you have to build a narrative to justify. So that's actually all Trump's doing in his like crude demagogic way. And I just want to say a brief...
Well, it's not also all that Trump's doing. That's why he got there.
And that's why he got there.
Because it's the flip side of, and we said this many times during the tweets, during the campaign, that when the Republican Party says you're immoral and that's why you're poor, the flip side of that is if you're the richest person on the stage, you are the most powerful and deserving.
And that's why Mitt Romney and Donald Trump are the same thing in that respect.
Exactly. And it's why when Jeb Bush said anything, Donald Trump was just like, I'm a billionaire, supposedly. Right. And so according to the entire principles that you've established around the Republican Party and a worldview of conservatism, I'm better than you.
Right. I think that and also this is less important, but I mean, the idea of calling Elijah Cummings, obviously I have very different politics or significantly different politics than Elijah Cummings, but he's definitely my favorite member of the House Democratic leadership by far. And just going back a couple of months when there was that whole melodrama when Rashida Tlaib did the whole I forget what she's basically made a point about racist attitudes, even if you don't have it, even if in your own awareness you're not explicitly racist. And that guy on the committee cried and had a meltdown. I don't know if people are remembering this. Of course, it came out that he had in fact said multiple birther and racist comments. But Elijah Cummings, I mean, in a perfect distillation of all of these dynamics, basically comforted the guy. And the guy did a whole... Meadows, Mr. Chairman, you and I are friends, and all this stuff. And Cummings actually was like, in fact, yeah, we are friends. But he had to psychologically comfort and protect this guy because he had a meltdown about her making a basic point about entirely race-baiting exercise, which was all they were doing by literally having a black woman from the Trump organization stand mute, looking into space while they were like, looky here, he can't be racist.
Meanwhile, Jeff Meadows, when he came out to, Mark Meadows, when Elijah Cummings was being attacked, Meadows, who was,
great personal friends.
Good friends. He came out and said, no one works harder for his district than Elijah. He's passionate about the people he represents. And no, Elijah is not a racist.
Oh, phew. I was really concerned about his reputation
really
for a second there.
I am absolutely
what a buddy.
Yeah, right. I won't dignify that. I support my president, but what an atrocious, disgusting thing to say about my colleague and friends. Hey, let me tell you something. Elijah's one of the good ones, and he personally would not choose to live around rats. That's why he's in Congress. I got your back.
Exactly.
Pro tip to the new people in Congress: maybe don't make friends with folks like that.
It certainly. I mean, I know it's probably one of those things where he comes up to Cummings and it's like, I'm sorry about that. You know how it is with my crazies. I've got to. They're so crazy. I've got to really be racist. I'm sorry. Let's just preview the debate a little bit tonight. Start off with this guy on CNN. This is, I think, I think this is sort of accurate in some way. Sort of, but there's one premise. Let's see if you can figure this out. What this premise is that is mistaken here, right? When he talks about Twitter Democrats,
Democratic Party right now, a real concern among some more centrist Democrats, establishment Democrats, that the party is moving too far left, that they're chasing Twitter headlines instead of where the majority of the American people may be. That concern exists in certain circles. And I think tonight there is going to be this, I would imagine, assertion from folks who are not in the center of the stage, who are more moderate, to try and make that case and appeal to that sensibility, that concern in some quarters of the party that the policies that Warren and Sanders particularly are driving forth may be too far left. I will just say, Warren and Sanders have been fighting against that theory their entire political lives.
All right, well, here's the problem with the whole theory that this guy postulates. If it was the case that it's just Twitter Democrats, as he says, that are driving this sort of push to the left, why is it that no one else on that stage will be polling in double digits other than Warren and Bernie Sanders? And it's not even close. You got Buttigieg, I think it was around 7, maybe 8, probably closer to 7 on an average.
From 6 to
I'm talking
10.
about you got to average these polls.
And 7 or 8, yep.
And then everyone else, no one I think breaks 3%. And that may be generous. So you have to ask yourself, if it's just about chasing Twitter, how is it that Twitter, and it's true, there's not a lot of people on political Twitter, as it were.
Certainly not 33%.
How is it possible that they are commanding between the two of them a plurality, it appears at this point, close to it, of the Democratic vote? How could that possibly be the case? On top of which, I still contend that I don't know that other than the labeling that is done by people like that and by the centrists, that people really care about the labels. It really is just sort of like how you wear it, I think.
They care about your instincts. They care about, I do think some policies have salience for people, but I agree with you. And I think, not only do people not care about labels broadly, I think you still see, depending on your, in certain social environments, I see people wanting to claim the tag socialist when they are definitely not, because they perceive it as cool and trendy. And then in other social environments, I see people that are extremely left who still like to say, I'm a moderate.
Also, who are these establishment voters that he keeps referencing? I like it when they make people up and then you're like, oh, it's you.
Yeah, of course. I don't think it's him necessarily, but certainly the people who are espousing this, they're talking about themselves.
A lot of people are saying.
A lot of people are saying.
There's not a poll. I want to see some numbers on that.
Well, that's what they always mean is they're small social groups. Because as I've said a gazillion times, socially moderate and maybe even in some areas to the right and absolutely economically populist and left would be where you would find so-called swing voters. And they're always invariably talking about people that are, I wouldn't even say socially left, I would say quasi-socially tolerant and right-wing corporate economics.
All right, Kamala Harris is not going to be on tonight, so let's say that for tomorrow night. What's this? Who's this guy?
This is Robert Wolf, former economic advisor to President Obama.
All right, let's just do this one, and then one more point about Warren's got a proposal today that I imagine will come up in the debate. But this is the Road to 2020 on Fox News. this guy, Wolf, is going to blow. Is this Ainsley Earhart again? Yeah. Blow her mind with his description of the Democrats.
So,
who's going to be fighting in the debate tonight? Who are they going to go after? Probably Warren, because she's ahead.
Yeah, I think right now on stage you have a bunch of moderates tonight. You have like Beto and Mayor Pete and Tim Ryan and Klobuchar, and it's easy to go after.
Call them moderates?
Versus where Bernie and Warren are. I mean,
Buttigieg is not moderate.
We're all I'm talking within the party. Well, he's not for Medicare for all. So there's a few things he hasn't been for. Same with Beto. So you have real debates, whether it's on open borders or Medicare for all or student loans that you guys were chatting about. And to me, you have to kind of punch up. But more importantly, you got to let people know what you stand for. And that's what the party's not doing enough of.
Now, the idea that the party's not doing, first of all, open borders, he's making that up.
Yeah, maybe at the DSA convention.
But the idea of the party's not making it known what it stands for, there's literally a debate with 20 candidates, each one of them racing out with their policy proposals earlier and in more depth than I think I've ever seen. Compare this to what the Republican Party's last primary was like. I'm going to build a wall. And then Jeb Bush would say, well, I'm going to build a bigger wall. And then Marco Rubio would say, well, I'm going to build a thicker wall. That was basically the policy debate during the. I mean, so this is just absurd. We're getting a good a debate on policy. We're not seeing a ton of details on all these things, so it's a little bit difficult to sort of follow them on some respects. I can tell you that Kamala Harris's Medicare for All proposal is taking a bit of a hit, particularly on the 10-year waiting period, because people realize, like, wait, they did the math and they found out that if Barack Obama had tried to push the ACA with a 10-year window, then Donald Trump would have been the one who would have been responsible for implementing it. So that seems like a non-starter, exactly, from the get-go. The other interesting thing is there was pushback from Bernie Sanders' Medicare for all for folks saying that her plan's not really a Medicare for all. Now, the irony
they sent an email.
What's that?
They sent an email.
Yeah. The irony is that, as I've been saying in the past, that Bernie's Medicare for all bill is really like a Medicaid for all because it's more generous. It's more inclusive. It would be Medicare insofar as maybe the reimbursement rates would be closer in line with Medicare. More people would take it. More people are aware of it, but they specifically wanted to brand it Medicare because that doesn't have the stigma, apparently, that Medicaid does. So there's some brouhaha there where the Harris people are saying, well, yours is really a Medicaid for all, but this and that. It's, at the end of the day, her proposal was, I think, put out in many respects to seem like a moderate version of Bernie's plan, when in fact it was just one that does not appear to make sense because of it. The 10-year thing doesn't make sense, and the Medicare Advantage element of it doesn't make sense because people go to Medicare Advantage because it's more generous, not so much if you get really sick, but it's more generous if you don't get really sick. But Bernie's version of the Medicare for all plan would provide those things, so it doesn't quite make any sense. But
can I just say really briefly too that and the phase in is a matter of lives too. I mean, you elongate that, you're putting more people's lives at risk. The same way that Joe Biden's just unbelievable lies and fear mongering. Even under Obamacare, which I'm the first to admit that it's not what I want, but it of course has improved healthcare. There's still tens of millions of people without health insurance. And there's still plenty of people who have health insurance but don't properly use it because they can't afford deductibles and so on.
And can I just say, I'm really glad that Bernie is pushing back on this and showing where they differ on this policy, because that's the kind of thing that we were hoping he would do going into the first debate and maybe didn't do so well.
Well, she didn't have a proposal at that time.
Yeah.
Also, I should tell you, before we get into the debate tonight, Warren apparently has come out with a plan on trade, which involves 9 separate criteria in which a country would have to meet before negotiating a trade deal with the U.S. They have to uphold and enforce labor rights laid out by the International Labor Organization. They eliminate all domestic fuel subsidies, fossil fuel subsidies, fulfilling commitments from the Paris climate change, not running afoul of the State Department's country reports on human rights, not being on the Treasury Department's list for manipulative currencies, and about 4 more. It certainly would be a departure from where we are in terms of trade in the past. I mean, I think Bernie has signaled, broadly speaking, that he didn't like the existing trade structures that we have, but I don't know that he's come out with a specific proactive plan as of yet. But we will hear more of that tonight. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, I'm going to be talking to Nicholas Sarwark in the fun half, the 19th and current chair of the Libertarian National Committee. I want to remind you, if you want to join us and listen to this, you can become a member by going to jointhemajorityreport.com. Once you become a member, you'll immediately have access to all of our archives. And it'll be searchable on the app. It's the easiest place to look for it. Just log in on the app as a member, search any keyword, Libertarian, all the Libertarian stuff will pop up. This one, of course, will be there. And you get the whole show commercial free. You know the whole deal. Become a member today. Join themajorityreport.com. Don't forget justcoffee.coop, fair trade coffee, tea, or chocolate. Thank you for all the notes about the AM Quickie. I'm glad you like it. We're going to continue to do it. At one point, we're going to put it on its own feed like a little birdie. It's going to fly from the nest, but not quite yet. Probably closer to September now we're talking. But in the meantime, check it out. It's on your feed as it exists now. And Michael.
Yes, sir.
Last night we had on Brooke Thomas from TYT. Very fun. We talked about understanding the Central Park Five as like you could use that as the sort of key to understand Trump and tabloid culture. We also got into the mafia QAnon story. Really broad, wide-ranging interview with Celso Amorim, who's author of Acting Globally, Brazil's Assertive Foreign Policy. He was Lula's foreign minister, Dilma Rousseff's defense minister. We talked about the failure of globalization, the rise of the far right, and the state of Lula's imprisonment. Then went over Rogan and Cornel West, whole bunch of other stuff, obviously. This weekend, an illicit history of what's happening in Hong Kong with Elaine Koo, who's a reporter there. Michael Brooks' show on YouTube, patreon.com/TMBS. I want to thank everybody. We've met big targets this month. We've got over 2,500 patrons, which was the goal, and we crossed our first 60,000 on YouTube. So really appreciate it. Jamie.
This week on the Antifada, I talked with Leslie Lee III from Struggle Session about the movie Midsommar, and that's coming out tomorrow. So if you haven't seen the movie yet, you should probably see it right now before we spoil it for you. Although I feel like a lot of stuff that happens in that movie is fairly predictable. But anyway.
Yay or nay?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, it's a yay.
Hell yeah.
Okay.
I think it's better than Hereditary, actually. It's a good follow-up to Hereditary. And also, I've got an episode of my little side project, The Vampire Castle, with Leslie as well, coming out next week. I think it's for patrons. So if you want to hear us talk about vampires, you should probably be a patron to one or both of our shows. And also, we still have the episode from last week that I'm very stoked about, wherein I speak with Tithi Bhattacharya and Chinzia Rutsa about their amazing book, Feminism for the 99%, a Manifesto.
Matt.
Literary hangover, we did James Fenimore Cooper's The Pioneers, which if you like to read literature from a Marxist perspective, it's probably the best I've covered. Talks about settling central New York and how important commodification was to that process. Basically, the myth is that people are pioneers because of landlords want to give them freedom, or we have the pilgrims or whatever, but really it's because we want to commodify things. And in central New York, it was maple trees. And there's two things you can do with maple trees. You can either tap them for maple sugar, which is a longer process, but the trees can renew every year, or you can just burn them for potash and sell that to Europe for fertilizer. That's a bit of a shorter term, but faster money, and you can guess which one was done.
Potash. See you in the fun half, and we will be talking to the chair of the Libertarian Party. left is best. Jamie and I may have a disagreement.
Yeah, you can't just say whatever you want about people just because you're rich.
I have an absolute right to mock them on YouTube.
He's up there buggy whipping like he's the boss.
I am not your employer.
You know, I'm tired of the negativity.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to upset you. You're nervous, you're a little bit upset, you're riled up.
Yeah, maybe you should rethink your defense of that, you fucking idiots.
We're just going to get rid of you.
All right.
But dude, you want to smoke this joint?
Yes.
Do you feel like you are a dinosaur?
Some good shit.
Exactly. I'm happy now.
It's a win-win.
It's a win-win-win.
Oh, hell yeah.
Now listen to me. 2, 3, 4, 5 times. 847-906-501-457. 2, 38, 56, 27. 1/2. 5 8s. 3.9 billion.
Wow.
He's the ultimate math nerd.
Don't you see?
Why don't you get a real job instead of spewing vitriol and hatred, you left-wing Limbaugh?
Everybody's taking their dumb juice today.
Come on, Sammy.
Dance, dance, dance.
Rand Paul.
I had my first post-coital scene with a woman. I'm hoping to add more moves to my repertoire. All I have is the dip and the swirl.
Fine, we can double dip.
Yes, this is a perfect moment.
No.
Wait, what?
You make under $1 million a year. You're scum. You're nothing.
Excuse me? Fuck you, you fucking liberal elite. I think you belong in jail.
Thank you for saying that, Sam. You're a horrible, despicable person.
All right, gonna take a quick break. I want to take a moment to talk to some of the libertarians out there. Take whatever vehicle you want to drive to the library. What you're talking about is jibber jabber.
Classic. I'm feeling more chill already.
Good. Donald Trump can kiss all of our asses.
Hey, Sam. Hey, Andy. You guys ready to do some evil?
Hitler was such an idiot.
I think I might be a Nazi.
Agree.
No.
Death to America.
You.
Yes.
Wow.
Wow, that's weird. No way! Unbelievable. This guy's got a really good hook. Throw our hands up. Ooh. Wow.
But Sam, I gotta get off.
No worries. Let's. I want to just flesh this out a little bit. I mean, look, it's a free speech issue. If you don't like me,
Hey! Shut up! Thank you for calling into the majority.
we are back. What is that? We are back. Sam Seder on the Majority Report. Folks, on the phone, it is a pleasure to welcome the 19th and current chair of the Libertarian National Committee, Nicholas Sarwark. Nicholas, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me on, Sam.
So, all right, will you just tell folks what do you do as the chair of the Libertarian National Committee? Are you like the party head?
Yeah, it's the same position as the chairs of the Republican or Democratic National Committees. So you're the chair of the national organization of the party that controls, the national finances, has a national headquarters, coordinates ballot access, party stuff.
Okay. And so now, all right, so let's get some of the mechanics out of the way here. If I was to run in the Libertarian primary, how would I go about doing that? Is it too late?
Well, it's not too late. We nominate by convention still. So Libertarian politics is still real and not as made up and kabuki as the two old parties.
Mm-hmm.
So you would have to go around to state conventions all around the country. We're organized in all 50 states, and convince people who are going to be delegates to our national convention held next May in Austin to vote for you at that convention. We don't do binding primaries in the various states. Those are just advisory, or beauty contests.
Could I lobby these potential delegates, by phone, by mail, in other forums?
Yeah, I mean, it's standard political campaigning. The only difference is you're not trying to get votes on a state-sponsored primary election day. You're trying to convince activists who are going to be delegates to the national convention that you would be the best standard bearer for the Libertarian Party in 2020.
Are there going to be debates?
There are debates already happening among the candidates who are seeking the nomination. Usually those are at state party conventions around the country. There are some online debates that have happened. One of the things that I've noticed is everybody's really focused on the 37 people who are running for the Democratic nomination right now. So that's eating a lot of the oxygen in the room.
Yeah, well, I'm sorry about that. By all means, send if you have video of the debates, send them to us, because I'm upset that we have not seen them. Who has been debating? Who are some of the top Libertarian candidates at the moment? Is Kokesh in there?
So right now, Kokesh is in there. There's Adam Kokesh. There's Arvin Vohra. There's Kim Ruff. There's Vermin Supreme. Daniel Taxation is Theft Berman. And then there's a number of other people who are rumored to be considering running and haven't decided to run yet, because we are still, almost a year out from the convention in Austin.
Okay. All right. So we've got those mechanics down. I'm not sure. What do you think my chances would be in the, to run, if I was going to run?
Every time we have a national convention, the delegates are going to balance between who is closest to the Libertarian platform and, in their beliefs, and who is likely to have the largest megaphone if they go out and get the most credibility and earn the most votes. So where do you fall on how much of the Libertarian platform you agree with?
Well, that's the thing I wanted to talk to you about, because I'm not sure I'm fully aware of what the platform is, but to the extent that I am aware of it, I have a feeling not much. Now, I wanted to talk to you about
that might be a tough run for you.
Well, but I got to say, as popular as Vermin Supreme is, I may have a bigger platform, right? I could probably get on MSNBC as a Libertarian candidate in a way that, I understand Gary Johnson had that, but so far I don't see any big names out there who are going to be able to do this.
Yeah, the field is fairly open right now, but the question is going to be, why should a Libertarian delegate want you up on that stage if what you're going to say is, well, I don't really agree with my party on anything, but look at me, I'm on TV.
All right, well,
sell that for my delegate.
Fair enough, but you got to give me some credit, Nicholas, because I'm not going to. That's the way I'm going to approach it. I'm going to try and convince the folks in the party that there's some policies that need to be changed, like probably most of them. Now, I think like on a foreign policy perspective, I think we're fairly close. I'm not sure, like, at least top line, it looks like we're close. Obviously, I'm for...
you don't support foreign wars and getting involved in other countries' civil wars, bombing Yemen, things like that.
Indeed. So I think we've got we're aligned there. I think on decriminalization and legalization of drugs, I think we're fairly aligned. I'm guessing. I don't know.
So you don't want to keep the racist war on drugs going. You want to stop that.
That's correct.
Okay. So we're good on those two. We got two.
Now it gets a little trickier. Where are you guys on single-payer health care?
Do you think the government has been really good at doing things efficiently with your money?
Yes.
Okay.
Relative to relative to what? Like Verizon?
what do you see as the quality of the single payer systems that we have now? Either the VA, Medicare, Medicaid, do those produce high quality health care?
The VA is actually not just a single payer. VA is actually full on socialized medicine, right? That we provide.
Right. How's that going?
It's going actually. If you look at the surveys of people who use the VA, in terms
the ones who didn't kill themselves.
That's right. That's right. There's a lot of people who come back from wars and have PTSD. That's why, if we go back to the first plank that we agree upon, we don't. That's another one of the reasons why we don't want to send people to war. I mean, right, that the people who get treated by the VA have the are the singularly most most complicated cohort of people to treat, because they are sustaining injuries that doctors who are civilian doctors who just don't come across. They just don't have any experience in it. Medicine for people who have gone through war is a radically different animal in many respects. And so
it is.
The VA, if you look at satisfaction surveys of the VA, overall, they're competitive, if not better, than private hospitals. If you look at polling on Medicare, people love Medicare. They love it. And people on Medicaid actually love it, but they don't.
I asked about how it works.
Well, how would you assess how it works beyond whether the patients are happy with it?
Cost for outcomes is usually the way that most policy I've seen works.
Well, then you know that Medicaid costs almost 20 cents less a dollar than private insurance does in terms of delivering the exact same services. And then, in fact, you also probably know that when private insurance decides on trying to figure out what is the most effective treatment for different things and what they'll cover, they look to Medicare for that data, because Medicare is the only one that collects all that data and has enough of a pool in which to assess it. So by both those measures, Medicare is doing great.
That does not comport with the lived experience of Medicare recipients, but
wait, I thought we just said
if you wanted to talk about polling, that's fine.
When you say comport with the lived experience of Medicare recipients, wouldn't we be able to use polls to judge their satisfaction levels? And we started with that. That's the first thing I told you, and you said that wasn't good.
Well, no, you would use patient surveys of how they feel about the treatment they receive, not how the general public feels about Medicare as an abstract program.
I'm talking about Medicare in terms of the people who are on Medicare. All the polling of people who are on Medicare give it high marks. Now, that doesn't necessarily have to do with the treatment, because the treatment they're getting from private doctors. Medicare is just the insurance. You know that, right?
Right.
Right. So I think I could go in and sell people on the idea that a single-payer healthcare system is the way we should go. Medicare for all. And in fact, the Medicare for all that that Bernie, for instance, is offering is actually even better, and is, I think, going to be appreciated by people even more than the Medicare that exists now.
Okay. How would that work with the $22 trillion debt that we have?
I don't know. How does the tax cuts work with the debt? How does our military budget work with the debt?
When you don't cut spending, and neither the Republicans nor Democrats have any interest in cutting spending, and you continue to spend more than you take in tax receipts, it doesn't really work.
Why? What's not working?
I mean, we're putting our children and grandchildren into debt.
Why?
Is that sustainable?
Yes. It is sustainable.
How do you sustain that?
Well, I mean, it's easy. The debt, we're a sovereign nation. We can print our own currency. The debt that we owe is really just to ourselves. We gave trillions of dollars to the banks. I didn't agree with it, but we did it. Trillions of dollars to the banks, and we just wiped it off the balance sheets. It's gone.
Okay. So what happens when we just print our way out of this? What does that look like to you?
Well, We wouldn't necessarily print our way out of it. We would just erase the debt. But to the extent that we print our way out of it,
so
you
we
cannot
default
have.
on our debt.
You're worried about inflation.
What happens then?
You're worried about inflation, and if
do you have an example of another country that's defaulted on its sovereign debt, and what happened to them?
we're not going to default on our sovereign debt.
Okay.
We owe it to ourselves. We're not going to default.
We don't owe it to ourselves. We have bondholders that hold treasury notes that are separate from the
I understand.
government.
The vast majority of those are owned by the U.S. government.
I thought the majority was owned by China, but
really?
Let's
look that up.
I'm
Hold
pretty
on.
sure
Will you
China is
look
the
up-
holder of most of our sovereign debt.
Really? Come on now. You're the chairman
Yeah.
of a major U.S. policy. Matt, would you Google for us who owns U.S. debt? Put it up there. I would say China, the last I recall, was somewhere, I don't know, around maybe 9-10%. Foreign investors own 30%. U.S. government owns 30%. Wait, what's that? Roll up there. Federal Reserve owns 11%. U.S. investors own 30%. So we have China, assuming China is the biggest holder of our debt. It's not going to be more than like 10, 15%. So the 30%, the $5.73 trillion held by the U.S. government, well, guess what? U.S. government's going to be fine. We can print our own money, so we don't need the money that we owe ourselves. We've borrowed.
Okay. How did that work for Argentina or Venezuela?
How did what work for Argentina and Venezuela?
Well, Venezuela inflating your way out of your
Well, we're not inflating our way out of sovereign debt.
Defaulting on it.
We're not inflating our way out of it. We can just write it off.
Okay.
You're not comparing the economy of Venezuela to the economy of the United States, are you?
No, I'm asking you the question.
Where would Venezuela fit in the United States?
Policy?
Which one of the
What
states?
do you think is the outcome that we get if we print our way out of it?
I've already told you what the
inflate our way
outcome
out
is.
of it, or default on
Nicholas,
it. What happens to the country
I
and
told
the
you.
people who live here?
Nicholas, I told you what happens. Nothing.
What happens?
Nothing.
Okay. Do you have any examples of someone else where they did this and nothing bad happened?
The United States, quantitative easing. I want everybody who thinks that what I'm talking about is not accurate and what Nicholas is saying is accurate to Google QE 1, 2, and 3 and look for inflationary fears. Because I sat on a stage, on a TV stage with David Stockman. You know who he is, right? Reagan's office management budget. One of these guys, like these third way type of guys, who said that he said the exact same thing that you did almost 10 years ago in the wake of the QE, the quantitative easing one, that we were going to head for Weimar. And guess what happened? Nothing. Trillions of dollars we gave the banks. And then we just burnt it off. Just said, fine, keep it. We just traded the money back and forth.
What happens when we can't control the interest rate?
We can control the interest rate. The Federal Reserve controls the interest rates.
Well, the Federal Reserve can set a nominal interbank rate. What happens when the bond market refuses to respect the interest rate?
What are they going to do? Where are these bondholders going to go? Venezuela?
Probably either the euro or the renminbi.
I'm sorry, the euro? Are you aware of what's going on right now in Europe?
I am.
Okay. So you think that the bondholders are going to say, at what point do you anticipate this happening? I mean, if what you're saying,
it's advancing because the president's throwing us into a trade war with a bunch of tariffs.
Well, wait a second.
So, our
Nicholas,
foreign buyers are shifting to other countries.
Your theory.
When they shift to other countries, they're going to start marking to market in different currencies that are not the dollar,
right?
Which then lowers our buying power.
I had these same
lowers our
conversation
ability
with
to actually
people
control the interest rates
10 years ago. Nicholas,
okay.
Let me ask you this: how much are bonds worth now? What are the interest rates that we're having to pay to borrow money now? Have they skyrocketed?
I mean, the T-bill rate I think is down into the 2%. It's tiny.
Are these bond
zero.
buyers complete idiots? Because if what you're saying is the case, if we've got this massive debt that is going to challenge us, and we can actually talk about how expensive Medicare for all will be, because it's not nearly going to be as expensive, I think, as you anticipate. But if it was the case that these bondholders were worried about it, wouldn't the interest rates go up according to your theory?
Well, sort of. The bond price goes down to reflect the risk, but
right.
Yes, the perceived or the felt interest rates through the economy would go up.
Right. And why isn't that happening according to your theory?
Well, it's not happening because of the stuff that you're talking about. As the government continues to ignore the debt ceiling and print more money or issue more bonds and keep selling more debt, it pumps money into the economy, which then allows them to keep the interest rates low. You can do that for a long time. I mean,
when can you stop doing that?
For a long time and not have a hangover.
When do you have to stop?
Until you stop drinking.
Right, but when do you have to stop? Why should we stop drinking?
I would say take a look at what happened to Argentina.
We're not Argentina. We have control over our currency. We're not tied to any one natural resource to provide our.
But is that permanent? Is the currency control permanent, where we can issue sovereign debt and people will want to buy it?
I don't know.
Is that
I mean,
situation?
I have a feeling climate change is going to be a much bigger problem than our preeminence as a currency failing is going to be. Particularly as I look around. Now, bondholders agree with me, because otherwise you would see a commensurate rise in what they require to take on more risk. But they don't. So who are you going to believe? The people who are actually in the business of buying U.S. debt, or you? But let's change for let's change for a second.
Yeah, let's
for a moment.
shift.
Yeah, let's shift. Medicare for all. You're afraid that it's going to cost how much?
It's going to cost a lot. I mean, when you have a single payer for a service, you have no competition in that market, which is going to raise the cost of provisioning the care. You get some economies of scale for being a large buyer, but there's no competitive pressure to do anything better.
Are you aware of the term of monopsony?
Yes, I'm aware of the term of monopsony.
Okay. Explain to people what that is.
A monopsony is when you have one buyer of a good or a service in the market. So only one group or organization is the sole buyer of the product.
Correct. And what does that buyer have? What kind of power do they have in terms of the cost of things?
Theoretically, they have the power to set what price they will pay because they're the only buyer. The normal supply and demand stuff doesn't work exactly right. What happens instead is you have a steep drop from a willingness to provide the service to this single buyer at a dictated price to I'm not willing to even participate in the market anymore because the single buyer won't pay me enough. So what you end up happening is the problem you get with a single payer system.
So wait, let me just explain to people
shortages and scarcity. Because if the single buyer says my price is going to be so low, doctors get out of the market.
Right.
Or
So just to be clear,
gets out of the market.
Just to be clear, a single payer system will can actually control costs more, but the danger is that they'll control costs in such a way that it won't be profitable enough for doctors to be doctors. Right? That's what you're suggesting.
Right.
So the
look
real
at
danger,
Canada or the National Health Service in Britain, and you see some of these effects.
The National Health Service in Britain is like the VA.
Right.
You're conflating two different things. Because the National Health Service is actually all the doctors.
If you say Medicare for all, then it isn't.
No.
Right.
Nicholas, you're making a very, very severe error of a category error.
Okay. Help me understand.
Okay. In Britain, under the National Health Service, if you're a doctor, you're an employee of the government. Everyone around you is an employee of the government. In a single payer healthcare system, the doctors all work for either the hospital or themselves, but they get checks from the insurance company. In this instance, the insurance company is the U.S. government.
So why would you keep the insurance model if you're trying to move to a single-payer system?
I think maybe
that's
ultimately
what Obama did, which was stupid. You managed to take the worst of big health insurance companies, padding their bills and third-party payer and all of the disincentives there, and combine it with a mandate that, forced everybody to buy this crappy product. It's the worst of both worlds.
Well, the product got better.
Health economist will tell you that.
The product got
well.
That's not true. I've talked to a lot of health economists, but the product got better because of basically a minimum standard for what constituted health insurance. I would agree with you. It was a bad way.
The product got worse.
We shouldn't subsidize.
As a business owner who had to buy health insurance for my employees, the product got significantly worse to the point where the only coverage that was affordable had such a high deductible that it wasn't really insurance at all for anything other than catastrophic care. And that's why it was so unpopular.
You had no rescission.
The insurance companies sold crappy insurance.
It's more
and everyone
popular.
had to buy it.
It's actually got a 50%, more than 50% approval rating now. But putting that aside for a moment, we know that there's no such thing as rescission anymore. There's no lifetime caps. We know that you can't be that all makes it actual
That's
insurance.
why the insurers get out of the market. That's why I lost my insurer from year to year because
Indeed,
the insurer couldn't
right? Which is why
participate anymore.
you and I agree on this. The only good part about that was the expansion of Medicaid. This is why we need to go to a single payer. And then your fear is we're going to have doctors who are going to get out of the business because it's not going to be profitable enough for them. Now,
there's a much better model, Sam, than single payer or Medicare for all. If you're looking for a transitional service that works better, look at the Singapore model for healthcare. It's a much, much more robust model. It works better across the income spectrum. It incorporates some market
price caps,
corrective forces
price
with
caps,
the safety net.
Price caps, and
Singapore?
heavily regulated. Yeah.
No, Singapore. The thing is, everybody has a health savings account that continues through their life, and there's a mandatory amount of withholding.
Are you okay, Nicholas, as the
$1
chairman of the Libertarian Party, with price controls issued by the government?
I am not.
Well, wait a second. You're proposing Singapore's model.
No, what I said was if you're looking for something better than what we have, a Singaporean model would be much better than Medicare for all because you still have people who receive services paying something out of their own pocket, which makes them conscious of cost. That's what increases quality. I mean, if you want to look at the difference
wouldn't that be
between
the case right now?
healthcare
Well, then wait a second. You just complained to me about copays. With the Affordable Care Act.
Copays. I complained to you about deductibles.
Well, but
that
paying
are
for that stuff
a year.
Well, but
before you get any service.
But wouldn't that make it? Make you as a patient, as a consumer, more sensitive to creating better quality?
No. When you have a deductible that's that large, you actually create weird, perverse incentives to stack your health care into 1 year. So you have people putting off care that they should get that would cost them less because they want to, have their surgery and get Johnny's teeth fixed and do everything in the same year, so they might actually hit their damn deductible. The incentives get perverted. If you look at laser eye surgery, Sam, it's not covered by
What
any
is
health
it with you
insurance.
guys and laser eye surgery? What's his
Because the prices went down and the quality went up. It's exactly the opposite of every other part of healthcare.
It was because of
of
rollout of technology. That also happens with stereos too. I mean
but it happens with MRIs, but those prices go up. Their technology is getting better, but because it's an insurance model and because the government is involved in setting the prices through that same pricing model you talked about, where Medicaid sets prices.
Medicaid only sets prices
year.
now. Only sets prices now.
They set the
for
guidelines
Medicare,
for reimbursement
for Medicare, right?
With the AMA. So it's basically you have a cartel of doctors, you have a government agency.
What makes you think that we're not going to have a cartel of doctors with Singapore, the Singapore model?
Everything they regulate. Sorry, I didn't catch that last
What makes
bit.
you think we're not going to have a cartel of doctors with the Singapore model?
because the reason that the cartel is less effective with a Singapore model is as long as the first dollar is the consumer is paying is an out-of-pocket dollar, they're going to be looking at quality of service compared to price. They're going to be making the decisions that you make when you go to Costco about, do I buy the cheap stuff or the medium stuff or the expensive stuff? If it is paid
what are we
for by
wait,
someone
I'm just
else,
curious.
you
I'm just
don't
curious.
think that
What is
way.
it that we're buying at Costco? So I just want to actually get a real world sense of this. So I'm looking at the Cheerios at Costco versus should I get
versus some sort of organic, whole grain, whatever it is.
Okay.
Right? And then you make the choice of do you want cheaper calories or better calories?
Okay.
With your money.
Fair enough. Now, when I
When
go into
someone
the
else's
doctor,
money is used,
well, hold on
you
for one
buy
second.
whatever the hell you want.
When I go into the doctor and they say, well, we can do this type of radical surgery, we can do the laparoscopy, or we can use radial surgery. Now, how do I make that assessment? I mean, I'm on top of the
Cheerios. You make any other assessment. I mean, if you look, let's go back to the eye surgery. There's radial keratotomy, there's LASIK, there's some new stuff with these little flaps that they can change out where it's like a contact lens inside your eyeball. And you decide between you do the research and you decide what's best for you.
Okay, so I've got to learn about different surgeries, and not just LASIK. I mean, that's going to take me a while. But if I, God forbid, I get something that I don't have I have to crunch time on, like, what's the best way to treat this spreading cancer or something. I guess I got to read into that a little bit more to figure it out.
Well, you talk to your doctor about it. I mean, that is how medicine works.
Well, how do I know if my
general,
doctor,
right? Your doctor
is
talks to
the organic or the other type of Cheerios or whatever it is?
Well, one of the ways that people have been using now with the advent of social networks and, better technology is they have services like Yelp for doctors, for medical providers, where you can say, this doctor sucks, this doctor's great, this doctor had good outcomes, this doctor had bad ones. The one that people would really help, but the doctors fight against, is actual published pricing for what procedures cost. There's a differential of hundreds of percentage points in the same geographic area for, say, an MRI. You don't know what the MRI provider charges, and they work real hard to make sure you can't comparison shop. That's how you get gouged.
Now, so on the Singapore model, if we were to adopt this, you'd be okay with everything that comes with that, right? Which is the price controls with the taxes.
I didn't say It's not my preferred policy.
I see.
It's just better. It is objectively better than the policy that you're suggesting. Because you still have a consumer interest in getting good quality care at a what is considered to be a fair or good price. Because it's their money up front, and then Singapore puts a safety net for catastrophic care, you handle, the grave disease knowing that you're not going to die penniless, but you have to spend your money first so that for the normal routine things in life, you're
discouraged.
You're valuing it as your
this.
money.
Right.
You're valuing it as your money, not someone else's.
I'll tell you.
Right?
I think we've come together here.
Thing, right? I think you would agree. You're more careful with your money than someone else's. Is that fair?
When it comes to medicine, I never know what to do.
No, I meant in general.
Well, but I'm talking
more
about
careful
medicine.
Spending your money than someone else's.
I never
money.
spend other people's money. Nobody gives me that opportunity. But when it comes to medicine, I don't know. I mean, when I went in for my colonoscopy, it took me like 3 weeks to figure out like what the heck was going on just with the anesthesia, to be honest with you. So I found it to be horrific. I will say this.
Yeah, there's
I like the idea
in our health system.
I like the idea. I feel like this is why I think I have a chance to win in the race, because I've gotten you to suggest to me a system that has price controls, that has more aggressive taxation than we have in this country. Also, they have a system.
The taxation is less aggressive.
They have
Singapore
a system.
does not have higher taxation than us.
They have a system of what they call government-run clinics. So it's actually part NHS.
But
so it would be almost a VA for civilians who get really sick.
It's lower than here.
I'm sorry?
It's lower. They spend less. The government in Singapore spends less than our government spends, and they get better outcomes.
They only have 20% of their population uses private hospitals. 80% use subsidized hospitals by the government. All this, I feel like I'm making some headway here. But let's go from single payer, Singapore plan. I think maybe if we could get all the things that come with that, it really is. I would be open. I would be open to it.
Well, it would. So here's the real problem with health policy in this country, and this is just real talk. When you try and create a policy that solves 100% of the potential healthcare problems, the policy will be bad. If you create a policy that solves 90 to 95% of the healthcare problems, the policy will be much better. The problem with Obamacare and the ACA was these mandates to make insurance cover all sorts of stuff in all situations, to not allow people who are young and unlikely to need that kind of care to buy different packages, and solving for, the life-threatening rare illness that costs millions of dollars in treatment. When you solve for those edge cases, the overall solution gets worse. But if
Nicholas,
you solve for 80 to 90%,
Nicholas, you
can design a solution that works really well for most people.
Nicholas, I have two questions to ask you to assess how much you've thought about that statement.
Okay.
Where does 80% of the cost of our healthcare system come from? What percentage of the population?
I don't know that answer.
You want to take a guess?
I don't want to guess.
I don't blame you, because
I feel like that takes longer than you just telling me.
You're not answering, and me talking about this also took longer, but it actually comes from 20% of our patients. So when you talk about trying to aim for 80 to 90% of solutions, you're basically missing the most expensive people. That's the tricky part about healthcare.
Yes.
80% of the costs of healthcare come for 20% of the people. Then let me ask you one more question. How many people were implicated by the Affordable Care Act? Put aside Medicaid. Right? The Medicaid expansion that some states did not do, some that did. But in terms of the actual number of people who were subject to changing their insurance because of the Affordable Care Act, how many?
As I recall, I want to say it was somewhere between 20 and 30 million. Is that right?
A little bit less, but
a little bit less.
Close enough. I mean, it was closer to like 10 million.
Pretty close.
10 million. And and so when we talk about the implications of the Affordable Care Act, really, the only thing that impacted everybody.
That's a bait and switch, though, Sam. That is not fair. Because while that number of people who had to change their insurance is a small number.
No, they didn't have to change it. They did
plans that already existed did not continue to exist, and that affected a much larger pool of Americans.
Well, but that's like complaining. That's like saying, hey, this whole lemon law thing with cars, for instance, that you can't sell bad cars that, you know what a lemon law is, right?
Yeah, for a new vehicle, if you take it for 3 repairs and it isn't successfully repaired, the dealer has to take it back and refund your money.
If there's something fundamentally flawed with the car, it's not really it's not a sale. Well, that's basically what the ACA did. It said if you have lifetime caps, if you have yearly caps, if you can be denied claims because of this, if you can be denied insurance because you have some type of pre-existing condition, it's not really health insurance. And so you can't charge for it. It's basically a lemon law.
Well,
it's
but
just
here's
that
the thing.
it's
If
just
you
that the
can't
problem
be-
with
if you can't be denied for a pre-existing condition, the thing that you're being sold isn't insurance. Insurance is pooling risk. If you know that somebody has a pre-existing condition, you're not selling them insurance. You're selling them a chronic care plan.
Exactly. And
That's
I think,
a different thing.
I think you're
but
right
it's a
about
different
that.
Product.
It's a different product, and I think what we've gotten to
But there's
is
no way to make
that
money on that product.
Exactly. Exactly.
Oh.
We have found the fundamental flaw with the existence of the health insurance industry. It is not a real
this
business.
was built in back in the 50s.
Yes, it was a mistake.
This was built in with wartime price controls that
no.
made it tax deductible for
No,
your employer to give
no.
money to an insurance company on your behalf, but not tax deductible for you to just give money to your doctor. We screwed this whole thing up by government design.
I agree with you. It
have
wasn't
been.
just government design that did it. I've done literally numerous interviews with historians on this. But be that as it
The
may,
wage and price controls?
Yes,
And,
be that
and
as
health insurance as a benefit?
Yes. Be
Wage
that
and
as it
price
may,
controls are government imposed.
the insurance,
Are they not?
we have come to the conclusion that the health insurance industry is not a real business. Because if the idea is that we want to make sure that everyone has access, actual access, not a function of their wealth, but actual access to healthcare, everyone, universal, then the health insurance industry is not the way to do this.
No,
And
any
the
sort
only
of
way to
anything you
make it-
buy is not the way to universality. Universality is giving things out for free.
Exactly.
But
And-
free isn't free,
Well,
Sam. You have to pay for free.
Right, we can tax.
Free actually costs quite a bit.
We can tax. Well, in this instance, we know we have actually libertarian think tanks that have done the numbers, and the difference between the cost of single payer to society versus the cost of the system we have now to society is, according to the Mercatus, is that how you say that? Mercatus Institute is actually like $2 to $3 trillion less over the course of 10 years.
Well, this goes back to Milton Friedman's paper for Hoover from the early 90s, where he pointed out that both single-payer systems worldwide and completely free market systems like Hong Kong had, both produce better health outcomes at lower cost on a per-patient basis than our mixed system of government-provided health care plans running next to private health insurance plans. That our system is the worst possible system, and yet, we continue to do it because people don't get down to the fundamental distortion that was put in when they put the tax benefits on health insurance, which is it is cheaper for me to give money to my employer, to give money to a health insurance company, to give money to a doctor, than for me to give money directly to a doctor and eliminate those other two people. Right? That's the distortion that makes healthcare so expensive in the United States.
That is one of it. I mean, some of the research has shown that actually it's a function of I don't know if you've ever read that Atul Gawande piece. I think it was in the New Yorker about 10, 15 years ago about
the Checklist Manifesto, or
no, about the two cities in Texas. One of them, I can't remember what they two were, but they showed that even Medicare billing was higher, 20 to 30% higher in one than the other. Same health outcomes, same demographics. It was a function of doctors owning their own equipment and basically using it when it wasn't necessary. Now, a single payer system will deal with that because it will look at data across the spectrum of 300 million people being treated and assess what is more effective than others.
That's not correct. Based exactly on the Gawande piece you just mentioned, that is a single payer system, albeit with a smaller market. But if two Medicare cities can bill different amounts of money, there's nothing special about having the government do something that changes any of the human behavioral incentives. So if doctors are going to try and defraud the system, they're going to try and defraud a health insurance company, or they're going to try and defraud Medicare. the government people aren't any smarter or nicer or better trained than the people who work for the health insurance companies in detecting this kind of fraud, right? You have to separate who does something and whether it's government provisioned or there's a market system from the question of how humans behave with each other, which is more fundamental than that. Does that make sense?
I mean, I think so.
Okay.
Yeah. But I think so. I mean, I feel like we're in somewhat agreement.
You could try and pitch it. I mean, I'll tell you that I think that you do better if you're really trying to seek the nomination with maybe not leading with the places you don't agree with the party on, and maybe going with, the places you do agree with the party on. But,
getting to human frailty, I think that may be a problem psychologically I have, is that I like to lead with that. Where are you on Social Security? You okay with Social Security?
It needs to be dismantled in some way because it's fundamentally unsustainable. The actuarial tables are just off. No insurance company, like life insurance, which is real insurance, no insurance company could use the actuarial tables that Social Security is using. They would go to prison for fraud because it's just the money's not there.
What do you mean the money's not there?
There is. So Social Security isn't set up as an insurance pool. It is a transfer program from existing workers to older people who are receiving benefits from it. Correct. And there aren't enough workers for the number of old people because life expectancies. Social Security is set up on an actuarial life expectancy of like 70-something, 72, 74.
So are you going by the Social Security Trustees report?
Our expectancies are in the 80s now.
Are you going by the Social Security Trustees report? That team of actuarials who do this stuff?
Yes. Yes.
Which estimate are you using? A, B, or C?
I'm not looking at the report right now, so I'm not picking a particular estimate. I know the current forecast, I believe, is 2030 when it goes bankrupt or inverts.
I'm so upset
is that wrong?
You said that, Nicholas.
Okay.
Because
why are you so upset? Am I wrong?
Well, as the son of a bankruptcy attorney and as someone who has very recently read the Social Security Trustee report, you've made a mistake. You have assumed that the exhaustion of the trust fund, right, which was money built up. So it's not just wasn't just a transfer. There was money built up back during.
Theoretically, remember, it's all held in debt that really doesn't matter, and we can default on.
Well, right. We can just pay it off. Exactly. We can pay. In fact,
theoretically.
Well, not just theoretically, statutorily, actually.
But what happens if we do that? What happens to the value of the Social Security check those people will be receiving? Does it become more valuable or less valuable?
It doesn't change in value.
Destroy $5.4 trillion in debt.
It doesn't change in value.
That would surprise most economists.
No, I don't think it would actually. I think you're operating. I think most economists were very surprised that we could have the size of debt that we have now. I mean, 5 years ago, before folks realized that Rogoff, forgot to slide a number on his spreadsheet, everybody was talking about we're going to be Weimar Germany with this type of debt, but we're not even close. So if it surprises people, maybe they haven't been reading up on things that are actually happening. But the bottom line is the trust fund is going to be exhausted. You were right about the date. It shifts year to year, but it's around there, 2030. But even if we do nothing, in other words, even if we don't raise taxes, and I'll explain to you in a moment why we can very easily, even if we don't raise taxes, we will pay out 75% of promised benefits if we do nothing. So people will take a 25% cut. That's a lot. That's a big cut. I don't want people to have that cut. But if we do nothing, those younger workers, because people in there have calculators, they figured out how many people are born. They know the actuarial tables. They know what the projections are for people living, et cetera, et cetera. 75% of benefits until you and I are well dead. Now, why can we raise taxes?
So
because
system,
traditionally,
gives you a 25% haircut. What the hell kind of social safety net is that?
The problem
where
is, I'll explain to you.
You get three-quarters of the dollar you put in.
Well, no. I didn't say you get three-quarters of the dollar you get put in. You get three-quarters of the dollar that you were promised. Social Security still pays out a net benefit. Medicare, even bigger net benefit, which is more of the problem. But the right now, because of wealth inequality, we take in about 7 to 8% less in revenue on FICA taxes than we have traditionally done so in the past for the first 50, 60 years of the existence of Social Security. And that is because of the cap. And all we need to do is get rid of the cap. And even if you're worried about getting rid of the cap for the, the people between $120,000 and say $200,000 or $250,000, you can do a donut hole. Doesn't matter. Either one of those. People pay wage taxes and all their wages going up the income scale. We would be solvent for our grandkids before they die. So we can simply raise that tax.
The math
just had a massive
The math is simple, Sam. The math is simple.
I know. I just gave it to you.
The math says you can't put more money out of a system than you put into it. So you either need to cut benefits or increase revenues.
Right.
Right? Those are your two choices. So you're saying we're going to increase revenues. Are you saying that we're not going to adjust the Social Security threshold from, 65 or 66 and put it at 70 where it ought to be in order for the program to be solvent?
Not only am I not going to raise the retirement age, I'm going to increase benefits when I blow the cap away.
Wow. That is unlikely to work, but you might be able to get votes.
What do you mean unlikely
on
to
it
work?
From people who don't understand how money works.
Wait, why is that unlikely to work? You just said I need revenue. All right, I told you where I was going to get that revenue.
Yeah, you're gonna raise the taxes.
I'm going to raise the taxes. If you make more than $120,000 a year, instead of stopping to pay that 3% FICA tax at $120,000, you're going to have to pay it all the way up to your $1 million. That extra 3%. And when that
so you're gonna move the cap to $1 million, or are you gonna move it? You're gonna bust it entirely.
I was just assuming you make $1 million. I'm going to bust it entirely.
That's a huge assumption.
Well, I just
not accurate,
taking a guess. You're worth it, though. Believe me. But I would bust it. I would go bust it all the way through. 3%. If you make $10 million a year,
how much
3%.
more revenue? How much more revenue does it bring in on an annualized basis if you bust the cap?
Billions.
Right now.
Billions.
How much? How many billions?
I don't know. All I know is that I've seen the models, and they suggest that it would fund Social Security, honestly, for 75 years plus.
I would want to see the actual revenue projection.
Very easy to find. Just Google blow the cap off, and that's it. So, it's there. People have been doing this calculation for years because we've been arguing for it for years. As wealth inequality has gotten more, less money is run through the system. That's just the bottom line. More people are hoarding.
Why would I want to have to do these shenanigans and have the taxes raised to get at or 75% of what I'm promised?
No.
We could have something more similar to a Chilean model.
We're at 75% now.
Invest into an account that actually has a return.
We're at a 75%.
That is a positive number.
Well, I'll tell you why. One, we're already at the 75% now. All you need to do is raise taxes on extremely wealthy people to traditional levels in this country to be solvent forever. And two, if you look at the 401k, and again, I hate to just say Google it, but the 401k has been an experiment that has been an abject failure. People just don't save that way. Like you say, you cannot change human behavior. And human behavior is such that people do not save on their own in the 401, via a 401k in the way that everybody had hoped they would. It's been an abject failure. And we want to keep elderly people off the streets. We want to keep them from having to eat cat food. We know that Social Security, when it was instituted, kept 2/3 of our elderly out of poverty. and that's why blowing the cap away.
What was the worker to beneficiary ratio in the first 2 decades of the Social Security system?
It was much higher than it is today, but productivity was lower.
It was like in the 20s or 30s.
Right.
20,
and now it's like
1, I
what,
believe.
2 to 3 to 1, and productivity is about is commensurate with those changes.
I would suggest you take a close look at what's going on in Japan and the kind of demographic shifts that you get when you have transfer programs that are not able to be funded, and what that does to.
But you keep repeating that. But I keep telling you that the Social Security Trust Fund, which has three different estimates. One is more conservative, one is more moderate, one is more liberal, if you will, and on all three, it can pay 75% of benefits. At least, if we do nothing.
I mean,
and I'm telling you that
that we're only taking a 25-cent haircut.
Well,
if you were selling this as an investment, I'd go, thanks, but no thanks.
Right, and I'm telling you that we're taking 6 to 8% less in national taxes are going to our Social Security because of wealth inequality. And if we get that back up to the traditional level of 91, 92% of all income.
As a top marginal income?
No. Let me explain this to you. This is what you don't understand. So if you go back to the 70s and the 80s, maybe even the early 90s, and obviously before then, 91% of all income in the country was subject to the Social Security tax, the 3%, right?
Okay.
91% of all the income that everybody made in the country went through there. However, now we have such incredible wealth inequality that the money is sitting in the hands of people who cross the threshold of 120,000, and they have so much money there that there's less money circulating around. And we need to blow the cap off to get to that traditional level of how much of money is subject to Social Security tax. And when we get to 91%.
What percentage of income is subject to FICA now?
The first $120,000, 86%.
No, but I mean, what percentage
86,
of income?
86.
86. So we were at 91, and now we're at 86.
Yeah.
So it's gone down because I assume there are more high earners who are making money that's above the cap.
Right.
But do you think that getting that 5% back, or even increasing it and making it 98% of income subject to the tax is really going to balance that out?
Yes.
I don't think the math works, man.
It does.
Like I
didn't come up with this. I didn't do the math
tax
myself.
Foundation analysis or something, and
you should
find someone who did all the numbers. But I don't think your math works.
I think if you go and you'll find that the math works. The problem is that people don't want to be taxed more. That's the issue.
They really don't.
Right. Sucks.
Because here's why.
I wish I could eat cake all day and not get any weight. What are you going to
do? Dislike of having things taken. It's that the people who take the money are pretty damn irresponsible with it.
Well, you think Social Security? Wait, you think Social Security is irresponsible?
And they don't do good things for us.
So why are you getting so moralistic on this, but you won't on other things?
I'll get moralistic on anything you want me to, Sam. You have something else you want me moralistic on?
Well, do you get moralistic on other things?
Sure.
Do you think it's irresponsible?
Pick a topic. This one's kind of boring.
Do you think it's
a lot of math?
Whoa. Do you think it's irresponsible to keep elderly people out of poverty?
I don't.
Well, that's what the Social Security money is going for. That's what the Social Security is going towards. I mean, we know that the three biggest expenditures of our government are defense, Medicare and Medicaid, and Social Security.
So let me ask you this, Sam.
What's irresponsible in that?
Would you means test the benefits on the back end?
No.
And deny the benefits to an elderly person who has plenty of resources of their own?
I'll means test them on the front end. I'll raise their taxes.
But you wouldn't means test them on the back end?
Correct.
Why?
Because it's much more efficient to do it through taxes, A, because I don't want to have to make these assessments and garnish this money later. Just do it through taxes. We already have a mechanism for it. It's just a question of raising taxes.
Yeah, but so Here's the question. Is your goal to make sure that there are no elderly people eating cat food and dying on the streets? Is that your goal?
Yes.
I would share that goal. I think we found a point of agreement. If that's your goal, wouldn't it be
even
more
if they've been
efficient to
irresponsible,
just create
even if
a
they've been irresponsible,
means-tested
right?
benefit program for elderly people and not take a transfer to give to people who are comfortable in their retirement, who did save up? Wouldn't it make more sense to just give the benefit to elderly people who were in poverty?
Well, you
rather
can't
than
just give it to
giving
them. You got to
every
get the,
elderly person in the country.
we got to
Which
get
would be more efficient.
We got to get the money from somewhere, and I would tax them. But I mean, to be honest with you, I would tax
you're
them
not answering
also.
my question.
What's that?
Why should someone who has put away wealth over the course of their working career receive a social safety net that's intended to keep them from living on the streets and eating cat food?
It's
Why shouldn't
insurance.
that benefit only go to the people who are at risk of living on the streets and eating cat food?
Because society has showed us time and time again that the more universal you make a benefit, the more assuredly it will get to those people who need it. And we
So
can
it has
easily
to be an entitlement.
we can
for you.
easily. I don't know what entitlement means, but
An
yes,
entitlement means that you have some sort of legal claim to get that money from the government.
yeah,
You are entitled to it.
Yes.
By virtue of having worked before.
yes.
But that is different from a social safety net.
Well,
A social
you
safety
said
net
social
protects
safety net.
the least of these. An entitlement is we all agree to take money from people who are working today, pass it through a Social Security Administration, and hand it to old people who worked many, many years ago. That's just a fun thing for us to do. We like to do that.
Okay.
That's an entitlement.
All right. Entitlement.
A safety net is poor people shouldn't risk death or homelessness or eating cat food. But that's welfare.
I'm in favor of both those
Welfare
things.
is different from entitlements.
All right. I'm in favor of both. I mean, I'm in favor of a social insurance, or as you call it, an entitlement. And I'm in favor of if you want to call it welfare, I'm in favor of that too.
This is why your cat food example is a bait and switch, because I agree with you on that goal, that we want to stop that thing from happening. And you're using my agreement to say we should make sure that all young workers give money to old workers all the time.
Well, the young workers will get it back when they get older.
Well, they will only if the system's still there when they get old.
That's right. That's right.
Only if you trust the government to have enough money. Look at the government pension systems in Illinois, in California, frankly, in every state in this country.
And
The government's not good at managing money very well.
The state did listen, you and I would be in total agreement that corruption on a local level is greater than it is on a federal level, that you cannot allow such latitude for states to invest in stock markets because they are open to the shenanigans of hedge funders and whatnot. You and I are on totally the
incentive.
same. We're on. Well, they're getting kickbacks. The corruption on a local level is so much greater than on a federal
their
level.
incentive is for corruption.
You and
it's
I
not for profit.
are perfectly aligned here. I would put that money in a lockbox. I would demand that employers fund it greater. No tax cuts until there is 98% funding of pension funds. But politicians in the state government in particular, because there's getting less scrutiny, and even less now, they're willing to give tax cuts to people instead of funding the pensions. So you and I are in perfect alignment there. But the federal Social Security system has been proven to be effective. And when we needed to raise the tax under Ronald Reagan, bless his heart, we did it, and we anticipated this the baby boomers retiring, and
But what
we
did it
didn't
take to have
anticipate
that happen?
What we didn't
And this
anticipate.
is why our government's so broken. Is what it took was we have to. The nature of politicians is they're spineless cowards, and they're unwilling to solve a problem until they're literally driving off the cliff.
This is why I should get the nomination for the Libertarian Party, because I am not going to be so cowardly. I'm going to get in there and I'm going to say, we're going to blow the cap off this. And I promise you that your insurance, you may think that you're going to be a millionaire when you're 65. You may think you're a pauper. Neither one of you may be right. No matter what your situation is, I guarantee you, You will not be on the street with cat food. I mean, I feel like we found my plank here for the Libertarian Party, because I will not be cowardly about this.
It would be, like I said, if you want to go with the thing that you're solidly off platform with and use that as your pitch, more power to you. It's tricky to get a nomination from a group of people by coming in and saying, you know what, I want to represent you, but this thing that you've had in your platform for the last 4 decades that everybody agrees on, it sucks, and I'm going to not do what you want on that thing. That doesn't seem persuasive to me.
Yeah, you may be right about that. You may be right about that. But, I mean...
But I encourage you to try.
Well,
it'll be fun.
I mean, yeah, it would be fun. I mean, I feel like it may not work, but why is the Libertarian Party so dipped in amber? Why is it so encrusted? I mean, aren't we in a disruptive period of time?
We look at the platform every 2 years. Every 2 years we amend it.
You just said it was
things.
been like that for decades.
There are certain core things that are pretty much the same.
How
like
about
as
this?
far as the government should spend less money than they take in.
How about
that's not changing?
Well, you don't want
'Cause
that.
That should always.
You
be
don't
the
really
case.
want that, because
I
then,
really do want that.
Oh, because that you know historically, if you look at where we've had surpluses, right, you can look and see what happens to the economy in those instances, right?
Well, I remember fondly the Clinton years, but maybe you don't.
Oh, I do. I do remember the Clinton years, and we had a surplus. And what
And
happened
that
in
was a
2000?
surplus, and it went pretty well.
What happened in 2001 when we actually had the surplus? 2000.
Well, politicians spent it.
No.
Because they like to spend more money than they bring in.
We had a recession. George Bush had to mail checks to everybody for $300. That's what happened. And you should look that up. I can tell you're younger than me. Now,
I got
listen.
a check.
Listen. Well, because he didn't recognize it. I got my check from George Bush.
I got
really
a check.
take me that long.
I got a check.
How's this?
Am
I
I
get up
younger
there.
than you?
I get up there and I say, no. I get up there and I say, 20%. I'm going to cut defense by 20%. Cheers. And I'm going to spend that to send every kid to universal pre-K and 1 year of universal preschool. And have money left over.
Okay.
Are we down with that?
Probably not, but are you saying that the spending would be below the revenue taken in? Would you commit to cut spending, government spending,
No.
across the board to lower than the amount of money the government takes in taxes?
No.
Why should somebody vote for you if what you're telling them is, I'm going to put your kids and your grandkids into debt to give you stuff today?
Because that's not what I'm saying to them. I'm saying,
Okay, what
I'm
are
going
you
to give
saying
you
to
stuff
them?
today that is actually going to implicate the lives of your grandkids and your children and make their lives even better.
But if
And
that's so important, if this program
this
is going to make their children
old perspective
and grandchildren better,
on debt
why
has been
can't you cut
proven.
the one that sucks?
The old perspective on fear of debt and deficits has been proven to be bunk. It's just been a way to keep you people down, to keep the moneyed classes from basically preventing you from having any services and providing any competition to them. Now, I don't know what the financial makeup of the conventions are going to be. That may be cut against me a little bit, but.
In what way?
Well, I think if I start talking about the moneyed classes, it may end up being problematic. I don't know.
Are you dog whistling? Because I've been trying to avoid people dog whistling inside the party.
What does that mean?
Dog whistling?
No, I know what dog
Google
whistling
it.
means, but what am I? What? What am I dog whistling? Who? Oh, anti-Semitism? Do you guys have a problem with anti-Semitism in the program, in the party?
Big fan.
What?
Are you?
What's
I
that?
said, I'm not a fan of anti-Semitism. Are you?
Yeah, but wait a second. I'm not a fan of anti-Semitism. No, I find it a little bit problematic. But,
Good.
But wait a
Good.
second. Wait, what was the
so
dog
let's avoid
whistling?
things that sound like dog whistles.
Wait, what?
I said let's avoid things that sound like dog whistles if we share this problem with anti-Semitism.
Wait a second. Wait a second. You thought that when I said the wealthy classes that I was talking about the Jews, that I was dog whistling about the Jews?
It's been a dog whistle that's been used to refer to the Jews. Global elite thing like, these. Are you unaware of this kind of stuff?
I've heard of it, but I that was not at all. I was not in any way. I think I can say
you were not trying to do that. Fair enough. And I will apologize for being sensitive.
Well, no, I appreciate that sensitivity. Is there a problem within the Libertarian Party with this?
Not within the party, but there are various alt-righty people who think that it would be cool to call themselves libertarians.
Yeah.
And as a chair of the Libertarian Party, I think that's a lot less cool.
Well, I'm trying to police. I'm trying to police those people on your behalf. I can assure you. Well, listen, Nicholas, this has been great. It's been part of my listening tour to find out if I'm going to run for the Libertarian. I have to consult with a cabal of people to find out if I'm going to run. I have to see that if I can get media backing that I need.
Puppet masters tell you what you're supposed to do.
Exactly. Need to find out if I can do that.
What are your marching orders?
Exactly.
From the machine.
But in the meantime, I will take it under advisement. I'm gonna if I do run, of course, I'm gonna take also contemplate. I'm gonna re-listen to this and think maybe I shouldn't lead with the expansion of single payer or the expansion of Social Security. Well, I'll give that some thought. And but I appreciate your time today. And where can people go if they want to get more information about the National Libertarian Party and no alt-righters? Please.
LP.org is our website where you can find out what the platform says and you can kind of score yourself. You can sign up to join the only political party standing up for all of your freedoms all the time at LP.org.
All right. Thanks, Nicholas Sarwark. Thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Sam. Have a good one.
So that guy was a perfectly reasonable guy.
Nice, very nice guy.
Oh, my God.
Very nice guy.
Probably the most cordial one we've had.
Very cordial.
I kind of feel bad.
Kokesh wasn't bad either.
Yeah,
I feel bad for the true believer libertarians because they're really lonely right now because a lot of their old friends have turned into Nazis.
I also got the sense that there's probably a lot of libertarians who would think that Nicholas is not a true libertarian. That's the problem with libertarians. Is that like you talk about the Democrats being a herding cats. I have a feeling it's a lot like that with the Libertarian Party too.
The bankers don't like it. Hollywood doesn't like it. A certain group of people that roam from land to land don't like it. But guess what? We're going to fight them. The money changers, the lenders. Shylock's not in this administration.
That was so disarming because it's crazy the idea that you're talking about oligarchy would cue the idea of anti-Semitism. But on the other hand, good for him.
To be honest, I thought Sam was making that joke about libertarians being anti-Semitic. And I think
really?
that's why he was sensitive to it. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't think so. I thought Sam was just doing a little populism.
I was doing more populism. It didn't even occur to me at all.
So basically, you and the libertarian guy are subconsciously anti-Semitic.
I thought Sam was throwing shade at libertarians there.
Seriously? Are libertarians? I've never perceived libertarians as necessarily being anti-Semitic.
No,
but like he said, I mean, first of all, a right winger who's pretending to be or an alt-right person. I think alt-right's more cool than libertarian at this part for like fascists, right, or like right wingers. Like
none of them are cool, but yeah.
Well, I mean,
you may want some institutional support. No, I honestly thought he was like dog whistling while I was trying to like, I don't know, drum up fervor against rich people. I honestly did not understand what he was saying.
Right.
And then I realized he was talking about Sam's just sort of incredible appeals to anti-Semitism.
The Ben Shapiro of the left.
Exactly.
So
Hey,
this is
speaking
just,
of Ben Shapiro.
rational. The Jews run the money supply.
Speaking of Ben Shapiro.
That's rational.
Let's talk about taxation for a moment. Now, I didn't get into it too much with our libertarian friend because I didn't want to blow his mind too much with MMT. But here is Ben Shapiro last night. I guess it was last night or yesterday. I'm not quite exactly sure. Bernie Sanders had written, "Greed is the religion of the billionaire class." I mean, that's a little more poetic than I would put it, but okay. And a nation based on greed, but I mean, I think it's indisputable, right? I mean, how do you attain that type of money without making different decisions at any given point? That money is more important than, I don't know, being with your kids that one day, or not hurting that person's feelings, or paying that person what they're worth. I mean, it's almost definitional, it seems like. And a nation based on greed, Bernie writes, will not survive morally, economically, or politically. I mean, if you read any of the literature on the collapse of countries, it is more or less all based around that same theme. Whether it's that a ruling elite literally and figuratively puts themselves behind in a gated community, that there is extreme wealth inequality destabilizes countries. I mean, this is how countries die. And Bernie goes on to say that's why we fight to take power back from the billionaires and put it in the hands of people where it belongs. This seems rather uncontroversial, I think. I mean, but Ben Shapiro wants to jump in the game. And he says, greed is literally your religion. Now, I just, my son Saul has been saying literally a lot. And he uses it correctly. He actually does. Like, I don't know, a cup is empty. And he goes, that cup is literally empty. Now, Ben Shapiro must know.
That's your son.
That Bernie Sanders is talking figuratively. Bernie Sanders does not think there is actually a religion of greed.
They made it secret temples, and they worship greed. That's a big problem.
I mean, and you could use religion loosely, I guess, but I think he's basically saying it's their credo. And so he just says, greed is the religion of the billionaire class. And then Shapiro responds with, greed is literally your religion. Now, Bernie Sanders' literal religion
is socialism.
Well, I don't know if he has a literal religion in the literal sense.
Yeah, he made it sound a lot like his religion is socialism when he answered that question.
Well, he's Jewish, and I don't know if he recognizes himself as a Jew in a religious sense. But greed is literally your religion. Like, I don't think there is a religion that is called greed. But he wanted to make it seem like it's actually yours. But he read that and it didn't sound as good. And then he goes, you want to steal other people's money and distribute it as you see fit. Now, stealing other people's money and distributing it as you see fit is not necessarily greed.
No, it's closer to envy.
Or power. Right?
I would call Robin Hood greedy.
Right. I mean, is Robin Hood greedy? But we should say that Bernie Sanders is talking about taxation. And so I wanted to know, does Ben Shapiro think that taxation is stealing? Because stealing has a definition, just like literal. It has a literal definition. And in the Merriam-Webster dictionary, just the first one that comes up here, to take the property of another wrongfully, especially as a habitual regular practice. So wrongfully, right? It is a crime. To take something, it's a crime. And so I said, Area Man thinks taxes are illegal. And apparently he wanted to have the last word. So he said, nope, I think confiscatory taxes designed for redistribution are immoral. Now, what's interesting is that immoral is not the same as illegal. A. B. All taxes are designed for redistribution. There are no taxes that do not redistribute. Sometimes they redistribute up. We're going to give, we're going to provide, benefits to people who are starting a small business, so let's say, or or sometimes they're redistributed down. But they're always redistributed because you're taking, not stealing. Because if I was stealing, you would say, wait a second, I'm going to call the cops. Not, darn it, those taxes, I hate paying taxes. It's immoral. So he had to back off the stealing thing because he was a little bit too glib. And apparently he doesn't know how taxes are designed. And so I thought, you know what, Ben? Maybe you're not going to get the last word. And I put, in that case, area man doesn't know what steal means, nor the function of taxes. And then I think he decided it was time for him to step off the Twitter for a while.
Wow.
But the bottom line is that I'm struck by two things in this. Either Ben Shapiro gets away without being challenged at all. I mean, this is the guy who's considered to be the most intellectual guy on the right.
I mean, we saw what happened when he went on the BBC.
Right? He doesn't expect to be challenged at all. He can't deal with it. And how is there nobody else saying that this guy's out there stealing, confusing what taxation is? I mean, this guy has a huge platform. He should be interrogated by people, not literally like you were a police officer and finding out, but his, or a black site or something like that. But his like ridiculous assertions, but he's got 2 million people following him on Twitter.
He's only following 228.
If your whole brand is being a pedantic little prick, you better come correct when somebody corrects you.
Exactly. It's pretty shocking. But there it is, Ben Shapiro. All right, and so let's move to the other member of the IDW, the even more wounded animals. Ladies and gentlemen, I've been telling you for years that part of the reason why I was determined to, I don't want to say harass, but to question Dave Rubin's assertions that he makes in public about where he stands politically was because he had announced several years ago that he had a book coming out. And I wanted to make sure that if he got press for that book, that they would see that his whole shtick is bunk. And well, it is time for Dave Rubin's book to come out. It is entitled Don't Burn This Book, implying that there are people doing book burnings in the country. The last burning of any media I can be aware of was conservatives burning the Dixie Chicks albums when they spoke out against the war.
We don't burn books. It's bad for the environment.
Oh, wait. It was also the Quran being burned by some right-wingers, I guess about 8 or 9 years ago. Don't burn this book, which is also sort of ironic because, it's Abby Hoffman, and which was Steal This Book.
Should have called it Don't Remainder This Book.
Don't remainder this book. Don't burn this book. This was his way of basically saying there's book burnings that are taking place, but don't burn this one because I don't believe in free speech, I guess. I don't believe in
its expression.
It's almost like he's trying to reverse psychology us into wanting to burn the book.
Yeah, nobody buy this book and then burn it and upload
Oh God,
that. That would just be doing
do
his
that.
marketing
Jesus
for him.
Christ, don't do that.
Like whatever you do, don't burn this book.
You know
that would
he's
be
paying
terrible for
people.
me.
I am willing to bet anything I own.
Wait,
that
do we
he's
get
going
any
to hire
videos?
somebody.
Are you sure you're monitoring Twitter for the book burnings? Because I haven't seen a single one.
They're going to get it. About Don't Burn This Book, the progressive woke machine, from outrage mobs and online censorship to activists masquerading as journalists, is waging war against the last free thinkers in the world.
That is so melodramatic. The last free thinkers in the world.
There's only like 8 free thinkers
There's only
left.
like 8 free thinkers left. It's kind of like one of those
And 2 of
sci-fi
them,
movies.
You know, 2 of them are Weinsteins.
You know
Two
what
of
I?
them are brothers.
You know what I feel like is also happening? Somebody must be waging a war against the last copy editors too. That is quite a sentence. This book is both an explanation of the current political upheaval and your guide to surviving it. It's a survival book. Is there more? Oh, there's a little bit more. Here it is. It's oh wow, there's a lot here. Oh, we got to put this up there. Okay, and America and the West in general.
The West in general is literally written in the copy.
This is going to be genius.
Yeah, the West in general is in the midst of an identity. I feel like I need music for this. Can we get some type of how about no, I don't feel like that. Yeah, this is pretty good. What do you got? Okay. America and the West in general is in the midst of an identity crisis that's headed towards an outright revolution. The progressive left, once the advocates of free expression and individual autonomy, now undermine these values at every turn. The uncomfortable truth has turned moderates and true liberals into the politically homeless class. In response, Dave Rubin launched his political talk show, The Rubin Report, in 2015 as a laboratory for anyone trying to make sense of our shifting political landscape.
The landscape is shifting.
He discusses the most controversial
now.
issues of the day with people he both agrees and disagrees with.
Yeah.
Including those who have been dismissed, deplatformed, and even despised before they've had a chance to speak for themselves.
Sometimes I change video titles too.
Based on his own story as well as his experiences from the front lines of the free speech wars, this book will inspire you to make up your own mind about what you believe on any issue and show you how to check your facts, not your privilege. No matter your gender, economic class, or level of education, you're still allowed to have opinions. For now, Rubin separates facts from feelings, dispelling today's most pervasive myths like the wage gap, gun violence, racism, affirmative action, climate change, hate crimes, and more.
You can't give it all away.
Affirmative action doesn't even go in that list.
But wait a second.
If
What are the
if we're using the logic of this paragraph?
But I'm not even sure what this means. Dispelling today's most pervasive myths.
Yeah, he's saying those things aren't real.
The wage gap is a pervasive myth. Gun violence is a pervasive myth. Racism is a pervasive myth. Affirmative action, that doesn't even exist.
Affirmative action's a
that's what he
myth.
meant to say.
Exactly.
Climate change doesn't exist.
Oh, here
hate
we
crimes doesn't, and more doesn't exist.
And more.
Learn to stand your ground.
My husband did a lot of negotiations with the Koch brothers to have the climate change.
Stand your
chapter in
ground
there.
is one of those phrases that, as a liberal, I love to use.
A difference of opinion should not be a deal breaker for any relationship, professional or personal.
Dave.
Sadly, these days it often is. Rubin will show you that losing a few friends is a small price to pay for standing up for what you believe in.
Like Milo.
Anna, why won't you text me back anymore?
Yeah,
And
Milo.
why?
I don't know why you're being so weird about stuff, Milo.
Why is everything so weird? Yeah.
Choosing an authentic path is ultimately worth it. Defend liberalism while you still can. There it is. Oh, about his publisher. Sentinel was established in 2003 as a dedicated conservative imprint with Penguin Group. It publishes a
But I'm a
wide
liberal.
variety of right-of-center books on subjects like politics, history, public policy, Defend liberalism while you can, as I was saying. Time is running out to defend individual rights, limited government, and free expression. Rubin provides a roadmap for true classically liberal principles, regardless of your party affiliation, and shows you why freedom is impossible without them. Don't Burn This book empowers you with time-tested and common-sense principles that can turn the tide against authoritarians on both sides in this increasingly polarized world.
Both sides.
Calling out both sides.
Because what I'm going to do in the
is a rallying cry for anyone who wants to live freely, which is quickly becoming the most radical belief you could have.
Did he write
You
this
know what is
himself?
amazing? You know what this copy is like some like anxious person at a restaurant making sure they get everything in an order. You could cut down 50% of this and have the same thing. Racism is fake. the
Stop
left
trying to
is crazy.
deplatform his description.
Yeah, but just look at all of the friggin' adjectives.
I'm sorry, wanting to live freely is not a belief. Sorry to be pedantic.
You
again.
have been so pedantic. Don't you know he's debunking the pervasive myth of affirmative action?
Yeah, it's big of a conservative imprint to publish The Last Liberal like that too.
So big. of that.
And I'm also impressed that he dispels pervasive myths and wage gap, gun violence, racism, affirmative action, climate change, hate crimes, and more, all in a slim 256 pages.
Don't worry, I don't need that many. Brevity is they said brevity.
Lengthitude is a pervasive myth. I've just debunked it.
I just debunked it.
All right, well, there it is. We can lose the jazz, the slow jazz. So I am very interested. I think...
I really think if Walter Solzhenitsyn was alive today...
I'm telling you right now, we're introducing a new segment on this program. We will be reading from the Dave Rubin book once a week. We will read, maybe we'll put it out as a member benefit. I'm not sure how we're going to be. We're going to be doing this.
Walter Solzhenitsyn said that if he was alive today, he's still alive, but he would come on my show and we'd talk about the Soviet Union.
We will read from this book and we will scrutinize every single word of it. And if you see any indication that Dave Rubin is meeting with a journalist, I hope for God's sakes, that so that we can get the full story, because I know how Dave doesn't want anybody deplatformed. I want a platform in that piece written about the book.
I want a complete audit of any magazine that does or newspaper or website that does a positive review of this immediately. I want to know who is funding that outlet.
Do we have blurbs?
Well, I'd also look a little bit closer at this part here. Speaking of copy editors, just learn
to stand your ground. It felt really empowering to write this myself.
I typed this out. I'm walking back with my smoothie with one hand.
Tapping it out. I'm going to keep living my life.
All right.
I'm going to do what I want.
So Mitch McConnell got very upset, apparently, because...
I'm going to keep living my life.
He doesn't mind being called Cocaine Mitch, but I guess when they call him Moscow Mitch, he gets really uptight about that. And I think the reason why people are doing that is because we got extensive reports from both. Now, maybe Dan Coates, I don't know. Dan Coates quit the Directorate of National Intelligence because of repeated watering downs of his warnings of interference by Russians in our elections. And look, I was on Dave Feldman's show the other day, and he asked me if I thought that it made a difference what the Russians did buying, I don't know how many millions of people saw those Facebook ads, but they say 10 million or 100 million, doesn't matter. I have no idea. I also have no idea if what we do here every day means anything at all. I don't know if what David Feldman does means anything. I don't know if
Dave's a wounded antelope.
Dude. I'm talking about Dave Feldman. I don't know. I don't know if anybody who puts out any information or disinformation, whatever it is, implicates anybody's vote. It influences anyone's vote, or I don't know. There's no way to know. I do know that it was reported that the stuff about Hillary's health, supposedly that she had Parkinson's. I don't know if people voted against her, if that added to sort of like the miasma of why people voted against her or were not interested in going out and voting for her. It's hard to imagine that there weren't 5 people or 10. I don't know if there was 1,000. I don't know if there was 10,000. I mean, we're talking about 220 plus million people voting. I do know that when they pushed that meme that she was sick, that Jimmy Dore pursued it, and he spread it to another several 100,000 people. I don't know if that influenced anybody. We don't know. I can list a bunch of other reasons that I think that Hillary Clinton lost that probably had more salience, but it was a very close election. Should it have been that close? I don't think so, but George Bush won by 500 votes 20 years ago. This is a very polarized country. So when there are multiple reports that a foreign entity, never mind a foreign entity, I mean, I think if we found out that Boeing was doing this, I'd have a problem with it. They're certainly doing it through lobbying and whatnot from a legislative perspective, and I have a huge issue with that. The whole point of Citizens United was to get dark money out. So there's an attempt by the Senate and the House to pass bills to protect the databases that include voter registration for people. And Mitch McConnell refused to bring it to a vote. Why would you do this? He thinks it's going to benefit Democrats. It might. We know that the Republicans have as their stated goal to diminish the number of people on the voting rolls because it behooves them. So people started calling him Moscow Mitch. And it made him very, very angry.
Among other things, keeping our republic means we can't let modern day McCarthyism win. So here's my commitment. No matter how much they lie, no matter how much they bully, I will not be intimidated. For decades, I've used my Senate seat to stand up to Russia and protect the United States of America. I'm proud of my record. I'm proud that it's right there in black and white.
Pause it.
And
you'll recall that Mitch McConnell, it is reported, and he is not refuted, that when Barack Obama assembled all the political leaders to say, look, we got a problem with Russia, interference in our election. We're seeing it. We want to tell the public about it. That man right there said, if you do that, we're going to make it a political issue.
White and liars cannot gaslight it away. In the 1980s, as a freshman senator, I proudly stood with President Reagan on missile defense and other aspects of his Soviet policy. While the liberal media was shrieking that Reagan-Bush foreign policy wouldn't work, I was honored to support it with my vote and then watch communism crumble. Then in the 1990s, I used my place on the State Foreign Ops Subcommittee to sound the alarm when President Clinton was too soft on Russia.
Validating my lived experience.
Apparently he was very, very angry. Very angry about being called Moscow.
Well, good. They're engaging in erasure of my identity as a Cold Warrior.
I'm an abuse victim.
I'm
gaslit.
Gaslit outside of a discourse that has erased my lived experience.
So apparently Ted Cruz took a plane, and he was at ALX, and I guess some people saw him and started saying, like, hey, you got to free the children. It's a real problem, what's going on at the border. And he started laughing. He was giggling. I don't know, maybe it was a nervous laugh. Like, oh, God, I'm amongst people now. There's humans all over this airport.
This is the normal reaction a large group of people have around me.
And so they started to boo him and chant at him. Now, look, we should also say that Ted, a couple weeks ago, co-sponsored a bill that would not only make it illegal to engage with Antifa in any way, apparently. Basically said the resolution says that Antifa are terrorists, that it also includes anyone who is associated with Antifa. Basically, anybody on the left would be, the resolution says that they're terrorists. I don't know what the legal implications of that are, but it's junk. And I imagine if he can figure out a way, he would get all these people in LAX to go to prison for in any way protesting against him in LAX. Here they are. There you have it. Democratic Party was good in the past. And so that's the argument there. Nevertheless, I hope he's right. I hope he is right.
From your mouth to God's ears, honey.
Indeed. Let's listen to Kamala Harris. She's come out with a healthcare plan. It's been fascinating to sort of watch the response to this. I'm really surprised, frankly, because she got a little bit hammered. And I think someone put together this montage of her different positions on Medicare for All.
Justice Democrats.
And I think it reflects, frankly, what's in her plan. Her plan is, of course, static. It's not changing back and forth. But it works at cross purposes. And it doesn't make sense within it. Now, I like the fact that she's come out with it because I think it is more indication. And look, regardless of who you're supporting in this election, if you are remotely happy with the direction that Democrats have taken in terms of policies, you regardless of your feelings in terms of who you're supporting, you have to credit Bernie Sanders with this. I mean, it has been, frankly, I'm almost shocked. Harris is trying to present a plan that basically the subtext of it is, it's like Bernie's, but not quite as abrupt.
It's a slow burn.
It's a slow burn. Now, there's a lot of problems with that. There's a lot of problems. A lot of people have come out and said, like, you have 10 years. You're basically guaranteeing that this is in the hands of based upon what's been going back and forth in terms of our presidency. With
Tom Cotton.
With Tom Cotton. But never, and a lot of people, like I said, have questioned, like, why would you still have Medicare Advantage programs if the Medicare itself was expanded? But nevertheless, here is a representation of how she's been sort of all over the place in terms of healthcare. Maybe that's not a bad thing. Maybe it shows flexibility.
You don't have to go through the process of going through an insurance company, having them give you approval, going through the paperwork, all of the delay that may require. Who of us has not had that situation where you got to wait for approval and the doctor says, well, I don't know if your insurance company is going to cover this. Let's eliminate all of that. Let's move on.
Exactly. We were together.
Yes.
And you'll remember, and roll the tape, please.
Yeah, we can roll the tape.
Well,
you support the Bernie Sanders bill, which essentially gets rid of insurance.
I support Medicare for All, but I really do need to clear up what happened on that stage.
Okay.
It was in the context of saying, let's get rid of all the bureaucracy. Let's get all of the ways.
Oh, not the insurance companies.
No, that's not what I meant. I know it was interpreted that way. If you watch the tape, I think you'll see that there are obviously many interpretations of what I said.
Let's not be duped by a messaging campaign that has been waged for years by the insurance companies to have you into believing that you need to defend them. You need to defend yourself. Do you know what? 91% of the doctors are in Medicare. So the idea and the suggestion they're trying to make to you is really a false one. You will be able to have your doctor. 91% of them are in the Medicare system.
Who here would abolish their private health insurance in favor of a government-run plan? Yes. All right.
So you saw the hand up by Kamala Harris, but then she sort of clarified that response this morning on Morning Joe.
Do you believe that private insurance should be eliminated in this country?
No.
You don't?
I
But
do
you
not.
raised your hand last
But
night.
the question was, would you give up your private insurance for that option, and I said yes.
Oh, I think you heard it differently than others then.
Probably.
Yeah, there you go.
That was a weird question.
It was a bad question. It was without a doubt. There's no doubt about it. But I think like that is reflective of like the sort of the schizophrenic quality of the of her plan. All right, let's just do. I don't know. You want to do one more? You want to get Pete Hegseth on which one should we play here? Which one? Oh, let's go with Rand Paul. This coward. This dirty coward. This dirty coward who, as far as I can tell, did not vote to override President Trump's veto on the war in Yemen, right? Essentially selling stuff to Saudi Arabia. Is that right?
Did he vote to override the arms sale?
On the veto?
Oh, I don't think he actually did. I don't think he was part of that
What
list.
a coward. What a despicable coward. Brave enough to hold up the 9/11 compensation fund because you want to make sure that those guys actually have cancer. Here he is talking about someone. This is a guy who had his whole life basically handed to him on a platter. Wealthy doctor dad who made a lot of money as a doctor and leading basically a proto-fascist group of followers who he would write emails to talking about the Jews and the blacks. Sometimes that would happen. We wouldn't read them carefully. You know how you often accidentally hire a racist anti-Semite and let them write emails in your name and don't check their work? That happens to all of us. We've done it on this show multiple times. It's unbelievable. That's why we don't send emails anymore, because you can never be sure that the person you're hiring isn't going to write stuff like that.
That's why we had to stop Dick Spencer from writing the blog posts.
Exactly.
Dick Spencer had some interesting ideas.
Took the keys from him. But here's a guy who basically went, I don't know, did he go to private school? Probably. Smoking bongs in his college dorms. I got no problem with that. I certainly did that. Was more of like a joint guy myself, but nevertheless, this is a guy who's known the greatest hardship he's ever had is when his neighbors beat him up. And I'm sure that was that was painful. I'm sure it was not fun. But for him to, well, listen to his comments about Ilhan Omar.
I'm in a town where we have a lot of people who are refugees who have come, some from Somalia, some from Bosnia. I've never heard one of them say that America's a terrible place or be unappreciative of our country. Most of them are thankful. I've met people who have come here from behind the Iron Curtain that got away from communism. They're some of the best Americans we have because they really appreciate how great our country is. And then I hear Representative Omar say, oh, America's a terrible place. I'd love there to be justice, and there's no justice here. And it's like, well, she came here and we fed her, we clothed her, she got welfare, she got school, she got health care, and then lo and behold, she has the honor of actually winning a seat in Congress, and she says we're a terrible country. I think that's about as ungrateful as you can get. And so while I'm not saying we forcibly send her anywhere, I'm willing to contribute to buy her a ticket to go visit Somalia. And I think she could look and maybe learn a little bit about the disaster that is Somalia, that has no capitalism, has no God-given rights guaranteed in a constitution, and has about 7 different tribes that have been fighting each other for the last 40 years. And then maybe after she's visited Somalia for a while, she might come back and appreciate America more.
Does this guy not know that she came from Somalia? Is he not aware of what she went through to get here? I mean, it's stunning how desperate this guy is, how thirsty he is for an appointment from Donald Trump. How horrid his voters must be. That this is the type of stuff that he thinks they expect to get reelected. This is a garbage party. Garbage people appealing to other garbage people. Not all garbage people. How's that? Hashtag.
I also just would say, well, you're talking about Republicans, so my emphasis on making these distinctions doesn't stand when you're talking about Republicans. So maybe not all. If you're still voting for these people at this point, I don't know what to tell you. But I mean, I won't even get into it, but there's always the colonial and historical lesson of how a place gets to be in the state it is, including even under the Bush administration, them encouraging Ethiopia to interfere in Somalia in a very aggressive way. And of course, Somalia has its own failings and its own problems that are self-generated. It's an interdependent process. But, you know, and this just is, if you watch Ilhan Omar and what she says about the United States, there's an incredible degree of optimism and idealism there that these people have no understanding of, precisely because they are a bunch of spoiled, bigoted trust fund babies. And I think that that's actually another thing to emphasize, that if you look at the real seriousness about the opportunity of America that someone like Ilhan Omar puts across, it is, in fact, if you want to frame it that way, profoundly more respectful of this country and its possibility than anything that's ever come out of these people's mouths.
Yeah, way more respectful than it deserves, in my opinion.
I don't know.
Horrible.
Rand Paul, though, is just on a complete mission to suck up to Donald Trump.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you want to talk about the libertarian to alt-right pipeline. Just watch this video. And, you know, you were talking to our libertarian friend earlier, and he was expressing, you know, upset that so many libertarians turned into Nazis, or Nazis call themselves libertarians. You might want to ask yourself why.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, I was gonna go, but we just lost Matt.
Oh, Matt, Jesus.
All right. Listen, folks, we'll be back, I don't know, about 8:30 maybe to do the show. Somewhere around there.
Starts at 8.
What's it? The debate does?
Yeah.
Oh, it does?
Yeah.
Oh, closer to 7:30.
Yes.
Oh, good for CNN. They're doing it 8 to 10, not.
Yep.
Oh, that's much more helpful. All right. I got an easier babysitter situation. All right, folks. See you tonight.
It might take all the strength I got to get to where I want, but I know somehow I'm gonna get there. I wasn't looking when I just got caught between the truth and the lie bar, but finding out won't make me feel any better. Yeah, I know the clock is ticking, but the meds are gonna kick in, and my pilot light shining bright. I guess somewhere the choice was made for the option where you don't get paid, for the road that bends before it finally breaks you. I guess somehow I lost my drive between the 101 and the 5. Do you know how far the detour takes you? Yeah, I know